Good morning. Let's start this long info day. We are going to have a lot of presentation. The morning will be dedicated to the annual call and the afternoon to the dual use call that is the first time ever that we are going to have dual use call for the self-farm for steel. Very interesting, but also very demanding for my staff, but also for you if you are going to make a proposal, because there is a lot of things that they are brand new and we need to implement it together. As usual, means try to be as attentive as possible, because a lot of tips that you get this morning and this afternoon will be really useful for you for preparing a good proposal. We have also some changes in the system that they have made recently by the European Commission. And so there is, again, something that is important to follow really closely. I will not really take too much this morning of your time, and I will give immediately the floor to Dermot Battle, that is my call coordinator, that will give you some indication of how this morning will go, and then we will start with the presentation from my staff. So for the moment, thank you again for being here, for taking the opportunity to be here in presence. That is always very welcome, but also thanks to the people that are connected. They said that we are already around 50 or 60 people connected. And here this morning, some 50 people. So the self-farm corn steel is still a very interesting program, and it's important that you are here. Again, we will spend all the day together. Don't hesitate to talk to me if you have any other clarification. I will, as usual, intervene when I see that there is something and there is need of me, but I hope not too many times. So, Dermot, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So, welcome to everyone that's here in the room and those of you connecting at home or in work on the line. So just a few housekeeping things of how we'll run today, and I'll just go through the agenda before passing over to my head of sector to present the first section. So all the slides we will present today, this morning and afternoon, will be sent to you after the event, as well as the recording. So we're recording all the presentations today. For those of you connected online, there's no camera available for the attendees. You are muted by default, just to help us through the process that there's not interruptions during the presentations. If you wish to speak, so we're going to have different sections where we will pause for questions and answers. You can write your questions into the chat, but if you wish to speak, just raise your hand and we'll unmute you and you can ask the question live. But we encourage you during the presentation, if you have a question, just put it into the chat. When we pause, we have colleagues here that will read out your question and we will answer it. And when you, those of you in the room, when you're asking a question, please do identify yourself and your organization. So for the agenda, this morning we'll concentrate, as Sebastiano said, on the annual call. So we'll go through the first section of the application process, which is the part A. And then we'll stop for questions and answers at the end of the part A description when we go through the various slides. We'll have a pause for a coffee break, and then we'll come back into the part B side of the application. And we'll stop for questions and answers, and then we have colleagues joining us around midday that will go through the registration process and the validation process within the application. And that will conclude then for lunch. And we'll come back then at 2 p.m. for the afternoon session on the steel dual use call. So I'd now like to hand over to Spiridon to begin with the first section of today on Part A.
Hello and good morning also from my side. I will first speak about budget duration. I have many points at the beginning, but some of them are only a couple of slides. The objectives, admissibility and eligibility, and also a reminder about financial and operational capacity. Then Dermot will take over to talk about evaluation procedure and Part A. Then our program manager, Oscar Perez Ponzano, will speak about the Part B, so how to prepare the proposal. Then I will come back to give some insights on the detailed budget table, and Dermot will conclude with the submission. Now about budget duration, so you can see our earmarked budget, 40 million, as every year for the annual call. You can also see the percentages for coal and for steel that are coming from our legal basis. And then on top, in light blue, you can see the coal earmarked budgets. I'll go quickly through them with you. So 1 million for accompanying measures, 7 for research, and then a bit less than 3 million for pilot and demonstration projects, the PDPs. And then in dark blue for steel, same 1 million for the accompanying measures, 20.5 for the research projects, or higher budget with respect to coal. And then around 7.5, a bit more than 7.5 for the PDPs, the pilot and demonstration projects. We have an important disclaimer at the bottom of your slides. So although this is the planned budget that we have, it can happen that REA awards only part of this for a certain topic. Why? Because some proposals did not reach the funding threshold. So this can happen. Of course, we want to attract proposals of very good quality, but it's up to the evaluators, to the expert evaluators to decide on this. And then also, it is possible to switch budgets, funds between topics. So if for any reason, for a certain topic, the budget is not completely spent, it is possible to reshuffle it and fund more proposals in another topic. So all these things are possible depending on the scoring and the quality of the proposals. Now, some more detailed information per instrument. I will start with the accompanying measures. So the duration between 18 and 36 months, and an indication of the budget from our side between 0.3 and 0.5 million. However, look at the disclaimer in red. So the proposers can ask for different amounts. So these are indications from our side, and I will give indications also for the research and the PDPs, but it's possible to request higher amounts. And the accompanying measures have the highest funding rate. It is 100%. Research projects duration between 36 and 42 months. The budget recommendation between 1 and 3 million euros, and the funding rate lower, 60%, lower than the accompanying measures. And finally, the PDPs, high TRL, pilot and demonstration projects, duration between 36 and 42. There we have a different recommendation for coal and for steel. So for coal, we believe that between 1.5 and 3 is a reasonable amount, and for steel from 3 to 5 million. And we have here the lowest funding rate of the 3 instruments of 50%. Now, some reminders about the RFCS objectives, conditions, outcomes, and impacts. So first, for coal, this comes directly from our legal basis. So you can see also at the bottom the numbers of the legal base articles. So starting from left to right, first objective is about supporting the transition of the sector and the accompanying regions. Then to improve health and safety, And the last one is about environment and how to minimize the impacts from coal mines that are either already closed down or are in the process of closing down. So same for steel. Here we have 4 objectives. The first one, it's about steel making processes and how to make them more sustainable. Then how to find more advanced steel grades and applications. Then resource conservation, environment, and circularity. And the last one relates to working conditions and the workforce working in the steel factories. Now, what we would like to find inside the proposal. First, for the accompanying measures, as you may remember, these are dissemination instruments. They are not doing research. So their goal is to promote use of already existing knowledge, for example, by workshops, conferences, etc. Then for the research projects, it is about laboratory experimental work. And the idea is to gain more knowledge and attain practical objectives in relation to products and processes or even services. And then for the PDPs, we have 2 different subcategories. The first one, pilot in a bit lower TRL and demonstration at high TRL. And some indications. So for the pilot, it's about the development or construction of a pilot scale installation. So going from laboratory to practice in order to increase data reliability, be them technical, these data, or economical. And the next step is the demonstration stage. And for the demonstration projects, it's more about developing industrial scale installation. The idea is to bring together all the necessary data, and the next step is to go to full commercial exploitation of the technology. For the steel accompanying measures only, we have this year a priority. So this is only for steel and only for the accompanying measures of steel. So the applicants are invited to address at least one of the following. The first relates to workforce, talent attraction, development of skills, reskilling and upskilling. And the second, it's about compiling an overview of steel making green processes, ideally going to zero carbon scenarios for the policymakers. And then there are 2 sub-elements, either by digging into existing RFCS EU or national programs and provide benchmarks with information included in these projects, or go to non-EU programs to see what is the international dimension. Then, about the accompanying measures, some conditions. They have to have a balanced representation in their consortium. So all these different actors need to be present. So academia, research centers, industry, or industry associations. The actors have to address the just transition in relation to the coal regions. And for the steel industry, the actors related to the decarbonization. And if possible, suggest ideas to policy and decision makers in relation to green circular transformation, digitalization, and always in line with the European Green Deal. Now, about the research projects, the idea is that they should start at low TRL between 1 and 3 and achieve 4 to 5. But there we have some flexibility. So the large majority of the techniques have to respect this TRL window. However, if some minor activities go even beyond TRL 5, we're not going to penalize the proposals for this. So there we have flexibility. And the proposals need to include an assessment of industrial, economic, social, and environmental benefits. They don't need to have all the benefits, but at least one or more if relevant. Now it depends on the content of the proposal. For PDPs, we go to higher TRL. You see there the window from 4.5 to 7.8. Again, their flexibility. So their large majority need to respect the TRL window, but if some minor activities start at even lower TRL, it's okay. The experts will not penalize the proposal for this. And then same for the assessment of the benefits. Few words about the admissibility. So yeah, for the submission, obviously you need to use the funding and tenders portal. The coordinator who is filling this in needs to have the mandate from all the applicants. Then all the parts need to be there, Part A, Part D, the annexes, the detailed budget table that we will come back to later on, and also the list of previous projects to demonstrate your knowledge of the state of the art. And then going to the quality of the application, readable, accessible, printable, very important. You have a limit, it's up to 70 pages. You cannot write more. So in red, also very important. And in some cases, we see applicants that do not respect this. Please respect. It's really important for equal treatment among applicants. Do not delete the instructions. Use the correct font. Please do not change the margins of the documents. Now, about eligibility. So the participants that can participate, so entities established in the European Union member states and also overseas territories, and also third countries, so non-EU, they are allowed to participate when it is in the interest of the European Union. However, it is only the member states that can receive funding. Other participants are allowed, but without receiving any funding. About the composition, you see here the minimum requirements for accompanying measures. So we have 2 beneficiaries from 2 eligible countries, meaning member states. For research, 3 and 2. For PDP, 2 and 2. Finally, the activities have to take place in the eligible countries, and they must comply with the interests and priorities of the EU. Few words about the financial capacity and the operational capacity. So first, for the financial, every beneficiary needs to have stable and sufficient resources. This is something that we do not assess during the application with the experts. However, there is a very detailed assessment that is done by our agency for the proposals that are going to be funded. So during what we call the grant agreement preparation stage. So it is then that we assess this. On the contrary, the operational capacity is assessed by the experts during the evaluation. So the applicants have to have the qualifications, the know-how, and the resources. And in particular, so the whole consortium has to have the experience and competence to attain the goals of the project, and also to have really operational resources, infrastructure, instruments, etc., etc. Thank you. I hand over to Dermot for the continuation.
Thank you. So I'll now begin with a few elements on the evaluation procedure and then starting the application process itself in the funding and tenders portal. So the call is open at the moment. You'll find it on the funding and tenders portal with the call document and all the necessary documents that you need, which I'll go through in a few minutes. The call deadline is the 16th of September, so please submit well in advance of this date. On the submission, then we will start the evaluation process and the procedures. So this will occur between September to November. And then in January, February, the evaluation results will go out. So late January, early February. And then the expected grant agreement signature will occur in April to June next year. So the evaluation process, we have 4 key areas in the process. So following the submission, we do the admissibility and eligibility checks, which Spiridon just went through the main elements of. And then we have the individual evaluation phase. And this is the step where the experts assess the proposals individually themselves. It's a remote phase. There will be a minimum of 3 experts assessing each proposal. Following the remote phase and individual phase, we move to the consensus group phase. This is the step where all the experts come here to Brussels, and we have the consensus group meetings where those individual experts that assessed your proposal come together in a meeting to discuss and agree on a common position, including all the comments that they had and the scores of each proposal. Following the few days of individual meetings, when they're all concluded, we have the panel review step. And this is the step where all the experts come together as part of a panel and reach an agreement on the scores and comments of all the proposals that are submitted within the call and checking the consistency across the evaluation and discussing and resolving any issues if there are any. Following this, we will have the ranking list of all the proposals, and then once we have the ranking list, we move to the finalization of the ranking list, and these are the results then of the experts' evaluation and the final ranking list that will be sent to the COSCO, the program committee. And following this endorsement, then we will begin to send out the information letters. So those are the 4 key steps of the evaluation process. So the scoring of the call of the proposal. So there's 3 main award criteria: excellence, impact, and quality of efficiency of the implementation. In the Part B section after coffee, my colleague Oscar will go through these 3 main criteria in more detail. But for you to know the scoring of these individual criteria. So each criteria, the scoring range is between 0 and 5, and the passing threshold is 3. So each proposal needs to reach a minimum score of 3 in each threshold. The overall score is 15, and for a proposal to be considered for funding, it must pass all individual thresholds as well as the overall threshold. So minimum of 3 in each criteria, and then combined a minimum of 10. So what is the scoring? So it ranges from 0 to 5, as I mentioned. So a scoring of 3 is when a proposal addresses the criterion well, but there's a number of shortcomings. A 4, a very small number of shortcomings, and a 5, it's some minor shortcomings. And the scoring is in the increments of 0.25. So it could be 3.25, 3.5, and so forth. And then underneath 3 is if there is a weaknesses or so forth, that's below the scoring threshold. So a little bit, just one slide on AI. We cover it now in all our presentations because we're in the age of AI. We don't encourage you to use it because there's many elements that you need to check, but of course you can use it. It's not forbidden. What we say here is use it with caution. Why? Because the use of AI does not guarantee confidentiality. So the protection of sensitive information from further disclosure, so the information within your proposal and your area of research is not protected. And you have to take care of your intellectual property rights, and any of the information may be used by third parties for training the AI models. So we tell you to use it with extreme caution. So that's And just a quick overview on the process. I will now move to preparing the proposal, the part A. So what to do first? The first is in the funding and tenders portal, all the information that you need is there. So you'll have the call document, you have the legal base as well as other referred documents. You have the standard application form, the annotated model grant agreement, and then the online manual for submission. So please do check all these documents. Then, of course, you need to prepare your consortium, so your participants, the composition, the financial and operational capacity. And then a big part of your work, as you know, is the part B, which we'll cover later on. But there you need to obviously work on your objectives, the work packages, the milestones and timelines, so forth. We have the detailed budget table that you need to complete, as well as the budget table in part A, which I'll cover now in a moment, and then the annexes. So just a point on the list of previous projects. So in the part B annex, at the very end, there's a table where you need to list your list of previous projects. You can report that in the part B, or you can add it as the annex. Both is accepted. You can add that as an additional annex. So preparing the proposal. So once you start your application, this is the first page that you will you'll come to. I'll just put the pointer. So the key thing I want to point out here is please take care of that you're applying to the correct topic that you want to apply to. So check the left-hand side of the portal that if you're applying for a research topic, that it's listed here, because if you do all the work and then later on you're saying, oh, I should be in a pilot and demonstration, you have to start from the beginning again. So please, the first thing you do is check you're in the correct topic. The next thing you should do is download the templates. So all the templates that you need to complete, you just download them here. So that's the detailed budget table and the part B of the application form. Then you add your partner. So the coordinator will be the first partner of the proposal, and then you add each partner by clicking add partner. You can add the associate partner here, and then if you have an affiliated entity. Once you've added the partners, you save and move to the next step, which I show now on the next page. This is the second page you come to. And this is the main page where you'll be working on a lot. So what you see here is where you add the annexes. We'll go through the annexes later on, but the mandatory part of this is the part B annex and the detailed budget table. And here you can add the list of previous projects as mentioned, but it's also okay to have it in the part B. After you land on this page, you go to edit forms. So within the edit forms, there's some key information that you will need to enter in first. Of course, the acronym of your proposal and your proposal title, and the duration of your proposal. And then 2 or 3 key things to remember. So in the annual call, you'll enter in 3 keywords. I'll tell you why they're important. They're linked very much so to the abstract. So when an expert receives your proposal, the first thing that they will read is your abstract. Your abstract is really, really important. Don't leave it to something that can be just done very quickly. Why it is important? Because they look at key detail there of what your proposal is about. I'll show in a second some elements that you should all take into account when you're writing your abstract. So you add in your free keywords, you write your abstract, and then you must select fixed keywords. So there is a drop-down box, and you select the keywords then that are most relevant to your proposal. And you have a maximum of 6 to select. So please use the maximum amount. So the abstract, it's, as I mentioned, it helps the experts to understand the text by outlining the key points prior to reading the full document. Also, it helps us when we receive your proposal and we're assigning experts to your proposal. We can see and use one of the elements we see and use is the keywords as well as your abstract. So what we recommend of how to formulate your abstract. So a background is the first key thing you need to mention. So this is a simple opening sentence, placing the work in the context, describing the work in context. And then your aim in 1 or 2 sentences, giving the purpose of your work. Then you should discuss your methods. So in 1 or 2 sentences, explaining what will be done. And finally, your results. So 1 or 2 sentences indicating what you hope to accomplish with the project. So I stress this point because having a very good abstract helps you during the evaluation process when the expert gets your reads your proposal first, as well as us in assigning good experts to your proposal. So after you complete your abstracts and your fixed keywords, you'll be asked to identify the panel and the descriptor. So what is this? If you are applying for a coal proposal, you select coal, and then in the descriptor, one in steel in this example, then your technical group. So there's 5 technical groups in steel. In coal, there's 2. In the call document, in the annex, you can read the description of each technical group. So you try and assign or assign your proposal to the most appropriate technical group. It's not an evaluation criteria, it just helps us in the assigning experts to your proposal. And then following this, there is a question on, has your proposal been submitted in the previous 2 years? So if yes, it asks for you to enter in your proposal number. So we've just completed all the general information, and then on the left-hand side, we now move to the declarations. So I should point out, those of you that are familiar to applying through RFCS in previous years, the look and feel of the portal now is different. So that's what we're showing, the different look and feel of the proposal of the application process. So on the declarations, you need to agree to each of the declarations. If you miss one during the validation step of your proposal when you submit, it'll come up as an alert that you missed to fill out one of these. Then we move to the participant section. So at the first page, you added the partners, and then at this step, you will add more information about each partner. So the first part is already complete for you, so the name of the partner. Then the next section is to fill out the information on the department. So the department name, the country, and the address and so forth. And then the information about the main contact people from that partner. So the email address, the position in the organization, and then if the addresses of the main contact person is different than the company. Then this is a new feature that is in the application process now. So you can link a partner to other partners within the proposal. So if there's other partners that are in the same group that are controlled by, you can select from the drop-down box, and then you can link which partner may be linked to others within the consortium. And then we come to the budget table. So there's 2 budgets that you need to adhere to. We'll cover later the Part B detailed budget table, which is an Excel document that needs to be filled out separately. In the Part A, there's the overview of the budget table. So what you do is you click into this and it'll expand. A new feature is that it'll explain, there's a drop down here of explaining the different categories of the budget table. So you can read through as you're filling out if you need more information about what each category means. So it'll explain generically what's personal costs, subcontracting costs, and so forth. So the titles of each heading will be explained in more detail. And then you expand your budget table. So here, the overall totals of what you have in your Excel sheet, your detailed budget table, need to be entered in here. The information in this table must be the same as the Excel budget table. So this is a key thing for all coordinators to check. So once you're working over various weeks and months, you will have the final check before you submit. A common error is that the budget table, the Excel budget table, sometimes doesn't match what's in the Part A, because the Part A could be entered in first, and then between your interactions between the consortium members, some column is changed. If during our process or in the GAP process, what's in Part A prevails. So please check that they match. Another key thing that I'd like everyone to pay attention to is, as you're filling this out, at the end, there's other sources of finance. So here, what some consortiums forget to include is their own resources. So for example, if in this case, of example, it's an RPJ, so 6% funding rate. If it's the total cost is €1,000, then the requested EU contribution is 60% of that. If it's €1,000, 600. Then your own resources should be 400. So please fill out this column here, the own resources. If there's financial contributions or in-kind contributions, complete all these columns. So your total estimated project income should match the total maximum EU contribution here. So please pay attention to this point. Then another new feature that you'll see in your portal. So there is a fifth section called Security Issues Table. This is implemented across the programs and across the calls. It is not applicable to the annual call, so there's no security issues. We'll discuss it in more detail in the afternoon for the dual use call. All the answers are by default no, so leave them no. There's nothing to do here, but in the afternoon we'll go into much more detail of what needs to be answered here, because it's actually applicable to the dual use call. And then we come to the end of Part A. So in this section, at the very end, you need to, it's a requirement to press the validation summary. So if you miss something in any of these sections, if you forgot to put in the role of the main contact or a key part of the address of the company or a part of the budget table, it will show up here and give a validation warning. So there's amber warnings and red warnings. A red warning is something like when I said in the declarations you didn't click something. It will not allow you to submit if there's a red warning. An amber warning will show that you can submit, but there's a warning. You should clear it. So once you clear all your warnings, you press save and you close. And then that's Part A submitted. Well, not submitted, but ready to submit. We can pause here to ask any questions or ask and answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, we still have 5 minutes before the coffee break. Do you have any burning question, or you want to extend the coffee break for 5 minutes? Yes, please. We have a microphone.
Thank you very much for your nice presentation. I just have one question. So it's the funding rate is 60%. So what will happen if it's there are university involved, who do basically research. So do they get extra funding, or they have to find the co-funding from some other location?
This is something that it will be solved with the reform. Next year, we are going to align with the European research program, so the Horizon Europe and the university and SMEs and research center, we get 100%. For the time being, means they have to adjust within the consortium. We know that some industry, they are giving more money to the university and they get less money them. It depends, but the setup currently is that for the research project, you get 60% of the total cost, total budget, and then means this is something that for the university, if there is not a nice input from the industry, they have to fund the 40% themselves. This was one of the limitations of the research fund for core steel for many years that we have solved with the reform. And we believe that by aligning with Horizon Europe, we will give more opportunity to university research center and SME to participate.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you have any other question? Yeah. No? Okay. From the people that are connected. Yeah, this lady.
Yes, I was wondering if you could give some insights on the shortcomings that are often seen in the evaluation.
We can have several shortcomings in reality. Means we go mainly from impact, for example, where it's not clear if it is going to be an impact for the sector or for only a limited part. There are problems with the state of the art where it's not clearly explained where the project starts from, which TRL, etc. There are shortcomings in the composition of the consortium, for example, when some of the activities are not clearly defined and not clearly allocated. There is a lot of possibilities of having a shortcoming in reality during a preparation of the proposal. So this is something where we need to be extremely careful when we are preparing it in order to have to give as much possible information in order to clarify where the proposal start and where it goes for the expert. So this is giving we can have maybe some information from Oscar later on that he will present the different criteria and the different questions related to the criteria, and will indicate where there is weakness in reality that they can come from not answering properly to a question. Something else? Yes. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. So the first question is related to whether the three scoring criteria have an equal weight. For example, in Horizon, impact has a weight of 1.5 times.
No, we are not applying this in our research fund of core steel. The only moment where we are checking the scoring of the criteria is if there is an ex aequo in the scoring. So if at the end we have two proposals, they get 13.5, for example, and we have to choose the one that it goes higher in the list, we look at the impact. If the scoring in the impact is higher for one of the two, it goes up and the other go down. But we are not making any special allocation of points, whatever is the criterion impacted.
Thank you. The second question is related to the link for affiliated entities, and if you can elaborate a little bit more, and what does this mean, this link? Is it contractual? We gave a response.
You can answer?
Yeah, so there needs to be a legal link. So in your company statutes, there's a legal link to your company, and we will be asking for this during the grant agreement preparation
Thank
phase.
you. The third question is related.
It will be checked by our horizontal services when we are providing the information about the validation of the participant.
Thank you. Third question, in the explanation for the budget, travel costs were mentioned. Is this now also valid for RFCS proposals or only for Horizon proposals? In the budget information table, I could not see travel costs.
So this will be covered in the next section under the budget, but it comes in, it'll be explained that comes in under the indirect costs. But any budget question will be covered in the later presentation.
Thank you. Shall I take a couple of other questions online?
One more.
Okay. So regarding the remaining 40% financing, does it mean that within the consortium, the industrial partners could cover that missing 40%?
Yeah, as I said, it's a decision of the consortium. So it means we had in the consortium agreement a different repartition of the cost within the partners. But again, this is something that should be decided at project level, and there is also something that we needed to say that for us in the grant, the repartition will be remaining 60 or 50% for each of the participants. But within the consortium agreement, they can change this percentage if the industry is willing to take more or less of the funding for itself, and then providing a higher support to research center and a university. Okay, so I think that everybody is really thrilling to get this fantastic European Commission coffee. That is not particularly good, but anyhow. So we stop now. At what time we are coming back? At 15 minutes from now. Okay, thank you very much for the time being, and enjoy the coffee.
Okay, we'll start with this preparing a proposal part B. I know that you are expert in preparing proposals, so I will not tell you anything that you don't know, but I will give you some tips or ideas that maybe help you to improve. And for the question of, I don't know the name of the lady that asked before, I think it's Monica. So, and I will try to help her to understand what type of shortcomings can happen in this evaluation. Okay. So this, you know, is the table of content of the proposal. And what I will do is just basically to connect what you see in the proposal section with the question that we have in the evaluation form, and how the experts see the content of your proposal in these questions. So this is more or less the idea. So we start for the excellent. The first questions are very simple, are standard. There is no need of giving so much detail. Only one point that is very important is the expert are checking very well if the objectives are smart. So this concept you need to apply correctly. They have to see, and what typically they check is if these objectives are well presented and justified along the proposal. So don't put objectives that they are very beautiful, but they are not linked to the content of the proposal. Sometimes we have it, and then the expert said, this is not present or is not well justified in the content of the proposal. The major part of the time, this section is not, let's say, the most difficult. You know how to do it, and basically this will not generate big shortcomings. If we move to the next question, extent to which the proposal match the theme's priorities, this is a standard. So if your proposal fit on the objective of the call, and in our case is research fund for call still, usually you will fit. Okay. Now, the next question, and here we start to enter in the most tricky part, okay, because this is the most important. to demonstrate, because what the experts sometimes see is that there is very nice wording written with artificial intelligence that is not matching with the rest of the methodology. So it's good that I mean, everybody's using artificial intelligence, but please read it, because sometimes you see the mismatch between what is written in one section and written in the other section. And this is happening. So in this case, we are in the state of the art. It's very easy with artificial intelligence to go and get a very nice list of projects. But if you move to the next question, we are asking you your ambition and innovation. We are asking you the methodology. We are asking you a question that has to be referred to something. You start in a TRL and you finish in a TRL. You want to demonstrate your innovative aspect. You want to the novelties. But this starts from one point, that is the state of the art. Okay, some projects lack of critical information of international state of the art. Projects that they are running in Japan, US, Australia, or China, or India, they are not mentioned. And then some experts, they say, they don't mention critical project that. So you need to demonstrate that you know the subject, that you have the justification from where you start your research and where you go. So I'm connecting everything just in one picture, but this part, sometimes they don't take, is not to describe a list of elements or references, okay? Remember, we're in an industrial program. It's not like in the scientific standard program in Horizon that they are in the lowest TRL or a TRL 4 maximum, and you provide a lot of bibliography to justify your research. Here is very important that you focus which are the elements fundamental to justify what you propose to do. So in this case, it's more relevant to make reference, and we have a lot of projects in RFCS that they are pretty similar. So sometimes we have confusion, or we see that they are very similar to another project that we have. Please list these projects and demonstrate that this project is different from the other. What you are proposing now, there is differences. And in this way, you can justify, and the expert can assess properly your proposal and not have doubts, because the major part of the shortcoming is doubts. It's not clearly addressed. It's not well justified. It's not, a weakness is not present, but usually it's well written, the proposal, and it's not a weakness, but the shortcomings are coming because you are not explaining correctly the elements that justify what you want to say, or you want to do in this case. So it's very important to start in the state of the art, justifying from where you start, which gives you the reference to the TRL, the start point, and then you move to justify the ambition and the innovation aspects, okay? Innovation, we are not, it's very difficult to see breakthrough here. We will love it to see it, okay? But in general, we are in an industrial program, and you know that usually the breakthrough concept is more complicated to present in the industry. Everything usually is an incremental, okay? And the expert, they clearly see. But sometimes this incremental is very well justified and support what you are explaining, that the novelty is there, and this novelty has good impact. So please don't mention things that they are not realistic. The expert, they will tell this is not realistic. Another tip for you, that is better to say what is the reality and not to invent or go beyond, because sometimes the expert, they read it and it's not credible. This is another shortcoming that can appear, okay? You present something, but it's not fully credible. Typical shortcoming, okay? So we move now to the next element, the methodology. Another point that sometimes people are confusing in engineering very typically. Here is scientific methodology, how you will run your test, what you plan to do in order to scientifically demonstrate this technological advantage, okay? Here, what's the chain is very simple. There is a problem, you propose a solution, and there is a result. This is the standard methodology. But it's not only that you mentioned the scientific methodologies, you need to demonstrate the feasibility, okay? Because usually we are working in TRLs 4, okay, 5, 6, it's depending if it's research or PDP, but you need to take into consideration that we would like to see, and the expert like to see, that the structure that you propose is feasible, is realistic, and sometimes is not present, fully present. You mentioned something here, something there. What is the typical situation? That you present a process that 80% of the process is commercial and 20% is the novelty. And sometimes you don't explain correctly and they see the process is not commercial, is commercial. So, and you focus on the commercial side to demonstrate the feasibility, but the novelty is not well demonstrated and the expert will notice when they read it. So you need to be careful with this because sometimes the novelty is in a small part of the process. And this is something that you need to demonstrate. Another typical shortcoming in the methodology. And please here be careful because sometimes you make reference to the methodology in the implementation. It's like you want to justify here with work packages, blah, 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 everything. No, here is the scientific methodology, is what type of research activities you will run to reach the result that you expect, which is not sometimes so evident. And I insist, connect the methodology with exactly with the elements that demonstrate the novelty, okay? Because it's not always so clear. This I put it because sometimes the definition of the TRL is people, they don't understand, but basically we are working here at the level of the development. We are engineering projects, okay? The fundamental research is rare here. We are working at the level of 3, 4, 5 in research, and we move to 5, 6, 7, 8 for the PDPs, okay? So I insist that it's very important to connect correctly where you start, where you go, okay? Now we move to the impact. This criterion sometimes is the most difficult to assess for the expert because they are not specialists. So they are from the sector, they know more or less this, but they are not specialists on impact, all of them. They have the knowledge from the sector, but it's an element that is sometimes difficult to assess for everybody, even for you to write correctly. Okay, here, the most important, you have the results, you have an outcome, and you need to connect this outcome with the benefits that you want to demonstrate for the sector. And remember here, the keywords are sector. How are the benefits? And you need to have them to demonstrate the scale, okay, and the importance. A lot of projects, proposals, they don't present correctly these two elements or one of these, okay? Scale is clearly what you expect to cover in the future with this result. Is this process, technology, or whatever that you are, equipment, or can be applied where? How many plants can benefit from this? And the important is this. You need to connect perfectly what are your results with the importance of the technology and the benefits for the sector and the benefit for the society, for the environment and whatever. So the first part of this is what we call outcomes, okay? Outcomes and impact. You know, in Horizon we have the differentiation and we apply here. Spiridon presented in the slides, these two impacts element differentiated in two sections, okay? Outcome is the short term and impact is the long term. Basically, this is the difference. You have it, everything in the call document well explained. So the most important here, everything must be clear and justify in the sense that, for example, in steel, you have the benchmark, the reference. So the logic is I'm proposing something, I compare against the benchmark where I go, okay, against this benchmark. Usually you have a route, you have a new technology, and then has a potential result that can be an innovation in the route, and you change the route. These things has to be clearly addressed and well sustained in the pathways, okay, that you want to present here. Now, as I said, in the first part is more about the sector. In the second part is more about the society, the environment, the general concepts, okay, that are relevant. So in the long term, how will impact in the policies of the European Union? For example, in Green Deal. This element has to be well explained there. And of course, always scale and significant. I repeat this because sometimes the project, they don't present correctly this data. The major part of the shortcomings are there because they are not well sustained or well explained to demonstrate the importance of this impact, okay? In the implementation is the, let's say, it's amazing because sometimes the scores are the lowest. And in theory, everybody knows how to write it. And I can tell you, the experts, they are expert in this. So please pay attention what you are presenting here, because sometimes what they see is not a well-worked plan, it's not well structured, it's not connected between the methodology, scientific methodology, and the implementation part. There are no well-connected both sections. The objectives, the scientific methodology and methodology of implementation, they are not well presented, and they see it and they penalize. So here, it's very important that your work plan, your work packages, your activities, your tasks are fitting with the objectives, are fitting what you are presented in the excellence section. Now, the elements, deliverables, milestone, this has to be very clear because some experts pay a lot of attention on this. Sometimes the project presents very good scientific or technical milestones, but they are not presenting well the project milestones. Okay, this is happening very often. If you move to deliverables, usually they are well presented. This is not the worst, but sometimes they are not, the shortcoming is they are not justified, or they are deliverables that they are not fitting with the task or whatever, these kind of things. Now we move to the financial aspects. So in the financial aspect, you have the detailed budget table. Please sometimes you present the detailed budget table and it's not connected well with the use of resources, operational aspects, okay? And the expert they see. So because this should be an interpretation of what you are presenting in the work plan. So sometimes this is one of the main criticisms from the expert. Use of resources, they are excessive. So use of resources, if you present a lot of, or for example, another case that is very typical and is not well explained. You are using a lot of operational cost and you are putting a lot of equipment cost. Usually high operational cost means that you are using a lot of, you are using an equipment that exists, okay? And you are basically running more tests, or the equipment is, like in case of a furnace, is a big furnace, is an industrial furnace, and you are running tests there. And we can see it because you have higher operational cost. You have to use more input in the furnace than if you run in a demonstrator, basically because of the scale of the equipment. So these things you should justify because the expert, they will notice and they will penalize. Now we move to the subcontracting. This program is about running activities in the European Union, okay? Because it's for European organization. Some organization, they are trying to do subcontracting in third countries for critical or very important part of the activities, research activities that justify the proposal. This is not accepted by the expert, okay? Remember, it's a research program for member states. We want that the research activities are done, implemented in the European Union, okay? This I insist because sometimes they play and it's not fitting, okay? And very important, research activities in subcontracting shouldn't be done by a subcontractor because then you are penalizing the operational capacity. So if you have to subcontract critical or very relevant activities for research, and then you will be penalized. The operational capacity of your consortium is not able to implement critical activities. So this is why be careful when you write subcontracting and try to be logic and coherent. Now, the risk and mitigation measure, this is another point that the expert, they are very strict and they are looking for problems and they will always find something. Here I move to the concept that I said before, the quality of the consortium, the interaction between the partners and the operational capacity, they are always very well checked by the expert because they are expert in the sector and they know very well if what you are proposing can be done by the consortium. Now I move to Spiridon.
Thank you. So coming now to the detailed budget table that you have to fill in. I will cover several aspects, starting from the personnel cost, the subcontracting, the purchase cost, and then I will also detail the difference between the depreciation and the full cost options. But first, the disclaimer. So the information that I will show is for guiding purposes. However, you remain responsible for how you fill in your own proposal and for the calculations that you will do. Starting now, this is a screenshot from the personnel costs that you need to fill in. And first, so some theory. We have three types of personnel, three categories. So starting now from left to right, the most standard one, so the employees. So they have a contract, obviously, they receive a fixed salary. So this is a more frequent configuration. Then if we go to the middle, we have two subcategories. The persons that we call under direct contract and the secondment. So under direct contract, the most usual example is when you hire an in-house consultant, which is not part of your staff, but works in your premises. And the other subcategory is a seconded person coming from a third company. And there are two important subconditions. So the seconded colleagues need to work in the same or similar conditions are your normal staff. And even if their employer is a third party, the result of their work belongs to you. And then the third category, we have persons that do not receive a fixed salary because either they are the owners of a small and medium enterprise, so this is one configuration, or they are natural person beneficiaries. So it's not a company that is the entity, but it is a natural person, and they don't have a fixed salary. So these are the three possibilities for personnel costs. Now, in order to calculate them, we have a formula that multiplies the day, we call them day equivalents. I will explain why later on. So the days with a daily rate. And in a later slide, I will detail how you can calculate, so both the daily rate and the day equivalent. And there are some basic principles to consider. So it's a simplified formula. It's used across all programs. We would like to have a single calculation per reporting period. So do not change the calculation each month. And it's a calculation per person that works in the action. And it should cover most of the situations that you will encounter. And there is a maximum declarable Monday of 215 days that you need to take into account. Now, something very important, you need to record the hours that your staff is working for the project. we have a template for that, but you can use your own. It's perfectly fine. However, this is very important because you can be audited. And we had cases where there was no recording, and then the auditors will have findings that may have financial consequences. So for you, so very important to record using the template, the working time, using the template that you want. Now, first, you remember there were two green boxes that I presented earlier, the day equivalent and the daily rate. So how to calculate them? So first, the daily rate, it's a pretty straightforward calculation. So it's the actual personnel costs worked for the project divided by the declarable day equivalence. So it can be pro rata of 215. 215 is, as I said, the maximum. Now, what you should put in the daily rate and what you should not put. Now, first with what you should put, the fixed salary, social security can go in, taxes can go in, and then other complements are allowed. However, there has to be consistent and with objective criteria, following your usual accounting practices, and also other payments linked to the remuneration if justified and registered. What cannot go in, so remuneration which has not been an actual cost of the project. Obviously, all the costs need to be linked to the project, sorry. Bonuses cannot be included, and dividends cannot be included as well. Now, the other green box from the beginning, so the declarable day equivalent, sorry, again, there is a straightforward calculation here that you multiply the dates with the months. There is an important information regarding whether the person works full time for the project or part-time. So this has to be included, obviously, in order to have the real day equivalence. Now, there is a double maximum limit. So first is what we call the horizontal ceiling. So if the staff works in multiple actions per year, so the total number cannot be higher than the maximum, which is the 215, making allowance for a part-time factor if relevant. And then we have a reporting period ceiling. So for a reporting period that goes further than 1 year. So the declarable day equivalents are the maximum that you have in this reporting period. So also this is obvious. I mean, both cappings are obvious, but I think it's good to remind them so that there are two maximums that you cannot go beyond. So this was about personnel costs. So this is again the screenshot. Some clarification, they must be credible, obviously, reflect the salary of the person. Here we have an example, not put the CEO. This means salary, this means that it has to be the actual staff salary that is doing the work, whose costs are reflected. I'm saying this because we had some cases in the past where the salaries were CEO high, and there, in these occasions, we come back to you and ask for clarifications, and then you need to justify. So be careful with this. And then the subcontracting. So you remember what Oscar said earlier, he provided some advice. So it should be a limited part of the work. It is performed by third parties, not by beneficiaries. We have a threshold, the 30%. So below 30%, we don't ask too many questions. We ask questions, but not too many. If you go beyond 30%, there the experts start to raise their eyebrows. So there you can, it's not forbidden, but the justification has to be very solid if you go beyond the 30%. So this is more or less the same what I've just said, so I will skip it. Another item, the difference between subcontracts and purchases. So the subcontracts concern the actions of the project. The purchases are not actions, but are price elements that you need, for example, equipment that you need to purchase in order to achieve the action, but are not actions per se. And there are some examples. Okay, equipment is the most obvious. Goods, work, services, etc., that are necessary for you to implement the action. So these are declared under a different category, purchase costs. Now coming to the depreciation versus full cost option. Depreciation is the default, and in a later slide, I will also give an example, a very simple example of how to calculate it. And here in the screenshot, you see that you need to enter the utilization period. So inside the project, the depreciation period that mimics the lifetime of the asset, the purchase cost, and the percentage of the allocation to the project if you use the same equipment for 2 or more different projects. And this is carefully scrutinized by the evaluators under the third criterion dealing with implementation. Now, as said, the depreciation is the default. You also have the full cost option in our program as an exception. I will detail this later on. You can also use renting or leasing or combinations of those. This is allowed. And then, double charging is not allowed. So if you have purchased fully an equipment in a different proposal, you should not declare it again. Now, more about depreciation. So it's only the portion of the depreciation or the useful life of the asset that is eligible during the project lifetime. You should follow your usual accounting practices. Then it's spread over the, as I mentioned, asset's useful life. And then it's the time that you use it in the project that counts, and the percentage of the use for the project if it's used in different projects, as said earlier. And if you have bought the equipment before the action, it can happen. It's only the remaining depreciation period that is eligible. So here is the practical and simple example that I have pre-announced. So imagine a project that lasts 24 months, and you have an equipment that has a useful life of 5 years. And also you use it also for other projects. So you use it for this project only for 60%. So how you do it, you calculate the annuality, the depreciation for 1 year, you multiply by 2 because your project lasts 2 years, and you apply the 60% in order to have the depreciation cost. Now, coming to the full cost option, it is only allowed for high TRL PDPs. So for the annual call, it's not allowed for research projects. For the dual use call that we will discuss in the afternoon, this is a big ticket, so it is allowed. And also for the normal big ticket calls, you can have this option. You charge, if you choose to use depreciation, the full costs of the equipment. Obviously, they must be incurred during the action, and you record it as a fixed asset in your account. Here is the most frequent justification, because this is something that you have to justify carefully. So why you depart from the default option, that is depreciation, and you would like to use the full cost option, which is an exception. So a frequent justification, it is because you are developing a prototype or a pilot that is basically dedicated to a given and specific project. But maybe there are other justifications. Now, some more information about the full cost. As said, it has to be fully justified. You need to justify also that it is the most advantageous option, so best value for money. You should use your usual cost accounting practices. I've mentioned this already. And then record it as a fixed asset in your accounts, etc. And no double charging. So these are reminders that you need to follow. And here we have a practical example. So this is even more easy than the depreciation. You have a duration of 24 months, but this now it doesn't enter into account. You have the cost of the material and the assembly, and you charge the full amount without entering into any depreciation discussion. In order to introduce this full cost option in the budget table, our budget table is designed having in mind the depreciation option. So now if we want to use the table for a full cost option, so there's a trick that you need to do. You have to put the utilization period in months equal to the depreciation period, and then they just cancel each other in the calculation. So, and then obviously the cost of purchase and the allocation of the project to the project if you have to put it as 100%. Here, there is also another table where you need to put one by one all the equipments, if there are several for which you would like to use the full cost option. You need to describe, you need to put the cost, and here you have to put the justification, what I have mentioned earlier. So why, what is it that obliged you to use the full cost option instead of the depreciation option? And this is also something that is carefully scrutinized by the experts. And also why you believe that with the full cost option, you get best value for money. So here is the overview of the detailed budget table, where you put one by one all the costs that I have just mentioned. So personnel, subcontracting and purchase if applicable, etc., in order to have the full cost of the project. And then last slide, if you also have income, this is something that you also need to declare in the table. So any income from other sources or even from other grants in order to avoid double funding. And this is also something that we carefully scrutinize. Thank you, and back to Dermot.
Thank you. So you have heard now that we'll do the Part B template that you'll complete from Oscar. And then you've heard also the detailed budget table. So they're the two annexes that you'll upload in your submission. So once you have everything done, you're ready to submit. So this before coffee, we completed everything in Part A. Now we've completed Part B. You upload it here in this section, as well as the detailed budget table. and you clear anything that needs to be cleared once you press validate and you submit. And then you'll get your submission number. You can update your proposal at any point up to the deadline, but you need to resubmit. It's just an option I'd like to highlight for you. And the other 2 or 3 things I'd like to point out. So the consortium agreement. Once you submit, we ask you to already start thinking about your consortium agreement. This is a mandatory document that we will ask you during the grant preparation phase and before signature that you have it in place. So on the funding and tenders portal, you can find a template of what's in the consortium agreement and how to fill it out. So I'm not going to read through the slide here, but it's basically all the rules and rights and obligations, how you will work, how your research results will be identified, reported, shared, the confidentiality of different aspects need to be in this consortium agreement. And what we will not ask you for a copy of this, but we will ask you, have you it in place at the grant agreement signature? It takes time. So that's why we say once you submit, please already start orientating your consortium agreement and the elements that you need. And then at the gap stage, we'll ask you, that's the coordinator, to confirm that it's in place. Then just the last thing before we take questions, the Research Inquiry Service is a service that RFCS is a part of. So there you can go to them, ask any questions, but of course, in the call document, we have our functional mailbox as well. So you can write to us directly. If any questions you have during your application process that you want clarifications on, we'll provide them. And the Research Inquiry Service will also have information on other programs. So just wanted to highlight that at the end. So now we can take questions that remain from this morning, but also from the part B, Oscar's part, and the detailed budget table and everything else that you might have on your mind.
So maybe a nice question will wake you up after all this long presentation, very detailed with all this information. Do you have any question from? Yes, gentleman on the 3rd row. Yeah, but it's not working, your microphone.
Green. Okay, can you hear me now? Yannis Kokolis from Technical University of Dortmund in Germany. My question is, what is your advice about an industry partner who is interested in the research and wishes to contribute financially to the project, but does not want to be part of does not have to have any revenue from the project? So in that case, let's say you give the example of a furnace. Somebody says you can use our furnace and we, to a significant amount of money, but they really don't want to have any, they don't want to report hours or anything like that, and they don't wish to receive any money from the project either. So in that case, our research description would have a part that is not really reflected on the budget. What would be your advice about this?
But the best way is to consider them associated partners.
Okay.
Easy, they don't ask for money, they are there, you're using their facilities. That's the best way.
Okay, but again, in the budget, there will not be any reflection of these costs.
No, okay.
Would there be some way that they report what they contribute to the project, or this will be just left with the description of the research?
If I well remember, there was a function in the budget where you indicate what is the contribution even from an associated partner.
Okay.
And this is where you have to report, but should not be accurate with the hours that they allow you to use their furnace, for example. This is too detailed. Okay. Do we have any other question? Yes, this gentleman. First row on my right side.
Hello, Marlon Hahn, also from TU Dortmund, Germany. The expert reviewers were mentioned quite a lot now. Can you tell a little bit more about how the review consortium or the reviewers group is selected based on which criteria? So, I mean, for the research projects, for example, is it more reviewers from from academia, and for the more higher TRL level projects, is it more reviewers from industry also?
Are you talking about expert evaluators or
Yeah,
expert
evaluators?
For evaluators, we are choosing the best profile matching the proposal team. We are applying quite a conservative approach for the ITRL project because we are having 5 experts per project. And normally the participation of industry is quite important. They are either working in the industry or they have a past working experience long in the industry. So we have this, but the composition of our expert group is composed by people that they are working in the research center, academia, and industry. The CAG and SAG, so our advisory board, were very keen in the past to have to maintain a high level of industrial expertise because of the industrial-led research program that we have. But when we are talking about evaluation, you have to consider that in addition to the 5 or the 3 experts, if we are talking about low tier project, all the experts, they have the possibility to intervene during the panel review meeting. And so when we have, for example, an annual call, we have 40, 50, 60 experts. And I am confident that the result that it comes from all these expertise is positive. And we can reassure you that the right competencies are calling to duty for this evaluation. For the reviewers, when we are talking about a project that they propose that they became a project, we choose again the best possible matching between expertise and project topic.
I was just thinking, thank you. I was just thinking you must know your audience, so to say, and if you are a research institute and you apply for a research project, this naturally may differ from a more application-driven industrial project, and this is probably then also reflected in the expert evaluators.
As I said, we try to find the most possible matching between proposal and expert.
Thank you.
Considering that we are having also an evaluation that is run with a consensus and panel review in presence in Brussels, that is also giving an added value to the evaluation because experts, they come together, they can talk, they can, so this is something that we consider positive. Yes, please.
Thank you. So, Hlilovic from University of Ljubljana. Did I understand correctly about the forms for the personnel that also the name must be listed of the personnel? Is this correct, or is the name of the participant? Because I'm asking, what if we want to employ, if we get the project, if we are approved, the PhD student, then we cannot list the name.
No, you're right. You don't have to list the name, but yes, the function. So it can be PhD student, technical worker, scientific worker, etc. Yeah.
And should also be reasonable the amount of money that you ask for these guys. They should not be considered as a high top manager, all of them, because this is something that is not going to be credible. And also you have to consider that we are also checking national behavior. So it means if you are in a country where the revenue are lower, you cannot ask the same revenue as, for example, Germany. So there's a lot of things that you have to put into the right balance for these things. Yes.
I'm Jean Lamontanara from Trafilmetal, Italy. My question is about the personnel cost for the category A1. Do we need to calculate for each person, or we can calculate the cost by category I mean, you know, the worker, the medium people, the high level people.
Thank you for this question. So as mentioned, it has to be the person, just because you know how many you will employ in advance in order to arrive to a meaningful figure for the personnel costs. So it has to be, yes, per person, yeah. And in each category, you know how many persons you have. I mean, you should know, yeah.
It's about, you know, the euro by hour. No? So we know that more or less the workers are more or less there, the medium management and the high level management to prepare the budget.
Yeah, that's correct. And also what I mentioned in the slides, it has to be the actual persons that will do the work. This was the example that with the CEO, that it shouldn't be all
actual people that they will work on the project.
Yeah, yes, yes.
So if you have 50 people in the company, you cannot ask for 50 salaries. You have to ask for the 5 that they are working on this project most of the time. Do you have any other question? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Jubaid from University of Liège. My question related to SME. So you mentioned 3 options. So let's say the SME owner who doesn't take salary, how they will count the cost.
So it's not a salary, but as a semi-owner, you can have an idea of the fixed costs for this person, but it's not a contract like an employee. So there you should know what to indicate.
Is there any default rate already in the instruction?
No, there's no default rate.
Thank you.
Yeah, but unless the SME is 2 people and they are both working on the project, it means. But if SME is a bit larger, it's very unlikely that the owner or the SME is working 100% on the research project. So there is something that we will consider. Means if he works 10% on the work and the amount of the money that he get at the end as a revenue of the SME can be calculated 5%, 10%. But this is a very technical question. We are not fully skilled on this. But we can answer if you send this to our mailbox, we will provide you a more specific reply in due time in order that you can prepare this without any problem. But I'm not a financial person, so you cannot ask things too many to me. Okay, do we have any other question? Yes.
Okay, so we have a few questions on the chat. The first one, regarding impact on the sector, the criterion is often interpreted as an increase of production, for example, tons of steel. Results of, for example, TRL5 lead to new opportunities for the sector, which, however, cannot be quantified because they depend on the innovation readiness of the industry. Is this acceptable?
It's a very generic explanation. In theory, when you are describing the impact, you should use scenarios. So because you know the TRL level, you know the, let's say, the confidence of the results, you should be able to extrapolate this to a specific scenario and to calculate or to estimate the figures. Of course, with an error, but you will be able to do this extrapolation. So it's not because you are in a TRL specific, you cannot do anything. You have the possibility to extrapolate and to do the calculation with a specific confidence, okay? But it's just up to the expert to decide always how is this information accurate or precise or credible. That this is the word that you usually use, okay?
Yeah, but if we can add that higher the TRL is of the project, more accurate it should be your estimation. lower TRL, less accurate, because of course we are talking about a lot of hypothetic different scenarios that it goes in this way. But if we are going to a high TRL, we expect that your estimation has some meaning. This is important. Yeah.
Okay, the next one. Could you please clarify if there is any mandatory minimum duration of corporate existence for applicants in this RFCS call and whether this acts as a formal constraint on our eligibility? We are an emerging entity in the sector, and while we are relatively new as a company, our core team brings extensive experience and a proven track record from previous industrial and research roles. We understand that our operational capacity will be subject to evaluation. Thank you.
The only things that I can say that they are more than welcome. Means we have tried over the last 4 or 5 years to expand the number of stakeholders that they are applying for the research, and the fact that there is new brand companies that they would like to apply is more than welcome. And so their operational capacity will be judged, taken in consideration if their past experience, if there are probably written, but this is certainly not an indication to not submit. On the contrary, it's an indication to submit a proposal if you are a newcomer to the sector.
Next one. Could you please indicate what is the intermediate reporting period? Is it exactly half the duration of the project? Also, please indicate how the granted amount distributed is during the project.
Well, the intermediate reporting is just, we divide in 2 if it is up to 24 months, okay? If not, you can go to 3 reporting periods. But usually it's the half of the project, and usually we are not, let's say it's up to the expert in the work plan to see how is the workload in the different part, okay? I think I answered the question, no?
Regarding the amount of money, we were very conservative in providing a low pre-financing, that is 20%. But this was done in order to avoid a lot of problems for the companies to run into bank guarantee, all the other things, etc. So in order to protect the interests of the public money, but also in order to avoid all these long and very painful and also costly exercise for the company, we have decided to reduce the pre-financing. And then we will go with reimbursement of the cost according to the what is reported in the intermediate report. Just an information, as of next year, most probably with the reform, the research fund for coal and steel will intervene, will have the possibility of using the mutual mechanism that is applied for the Horizon Europe, and this will allow us to raise the pre-financing probably to something around 50%. That is also a good news for the participant to get a higher pre-financing and those to have to count on a bigger budget when they start working on this research project.
Another question. Is it possible to complement the 40% of own resources by funding from other national or European programs, always keeping the total funding below 100% of the total costs?
We need to avoid the double funding with European funds. This is something that is this is clear. We are not against having a national funding. For example, we have financed a large research project in Austria where a large part of the funding was provided by the Austrian government, for example. This is something that it can be combined. But if you're getting money from another European program, you cannot combine with us. This is something that we cannot do. So we have finished from home. There is any other question that is raised by the audience here? Doesn't seem the case. So, yeah. Second one, the last one. Eh? Okay, another question? Yes, please.
Is there some unwritten rule of thumb of how much of the total budget should be assigned to the industrial partners, like 20%, 80% is maybe too much? I don't know. I know there is no formal rule, but can you tell some recommendation or hint? What is appropriate?
I reply with a thumb rule, no.
Okay, thank you.
No, we do not have this. We do not have any kind of instruction about this. It's a matter of a consortium approach. It means you have and also TRL, because higher the TRL, more is the involvement of the industry, yes, and also the part of the reimbursement that they get for their action. So it's
I understand.
So considering that we have closed the question and answer, I will invite my colleagues from the validation service to come here and to give some indication on how to validate new partners and a lot of other important things. So Maria, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. So hello, everyone. My name is Maria Carneiro. Thank you, Mr. Fumeiro, for the introduction and also for the invitation for our services to present. I am here today with my colleague Konstantinos Konstantinidis. I am going to take care of the presentation of legal validation and LEAR appointment, and then my colleague will take over for the financial capacity assessment. So here you have the presentation outline, and we will go through the tasks of the Central Validation Service. We will talk about the registration of participants, legal validation and LEAR appointment, so the King Lear, as I like to call him, because this person has a lot of powers. And we'll go through how to communicate with the validation services, and afterwards, financial capacity assessment and links to very important documents. So our tasks, what do? We verify the legal existence and the legal status of the entities participating in a grant and public procurement, prices and contribution agreements. And why do we do that? We do this in order to safeguard the financial interests of the European Union. So on the basis of official supporting documents, we have to assess if the entities are who they claim they are. So we also validate the appointment of the leaders. We validate legal changes of entities that are already validated. So for instance, if during the process you change your legal name or you change your legal address, you communicate with our services and we will perform the necessary changes. We also assess the universal transfer of rights and obligations of validated entities. So again, if by any chance during the process you merge with another company, you inform our services and we will take care of assessing the file. We also encode the bank account requests. We prepare the financial capacity assessment. We perform the ownership control assessments for specific programs. And the part of ownership control assessment will be presented by another of our colleagues this afternoon. And we also perform ex post status verifications. So here you see the interface of the participant register, and this is where you're going to start registering your organization. So probably some of you have already participating in this process, and you'll probably have already a PIC number, and with a bit of luck already validated as well. So you just have to click and find a registered organization, and you will be directed to the data of your organization. If not, you will have to click on register your organization. And then you have to fill in all the organization data, legal information, and also you have to define the authorized users. And here it's very important to mention the person who is registering the PIC, so the self-registrant, provides his name and also his contact details. But we always recommend that he names a backup. And why? Because if the self-registrant by any chance leaves the organization, you will lose access to your PIC, which you can always recover, but we'll go to that later. But in any case, it's always better also to name a backup. So once the registration is completed, you receive the famous participant identification code, and it will show in the participant register as declared. And here you have the validation process overview. So once you have registered, at any moment you can receive a request from our services to provide us documents in order to provide you with the legal validation, the LEAR appointment, and the financial capacity assessment. And this process can occur simultaneously. So we will ask you for the documents, and you can send us immediately all the documents, because we are able to work on the three processes simultaneously. And all the communication with our services must be made via the participant register. So we verify the data that you have sent us, so the official supporting documents. And we do this before the signature of the grant agreement or the contract. And the good news is that the legal validation is done once, when you have to first sign your first agreement. Once your PIC is validated, then you don't have to do anything anymore unless you want to appoint another LEAR, but we will talk about that later on. And as I have mentioned also, the validation is always performed on the basis of supporting documents in accordance with the EU financial regulation and also the rules on legal entity validation, LEAR appointment, and financial capacity assessment. And I always recommend that you go through these documents just quickly in order for you to understand what are really the details of the legal validation. So legal validation documents, we ask for the VAT extract and the registration extract not older than 1 year for private law bodies. For public bodies, we ask for the law, the decree, or the decision creating the body. International organizations, we ask for the treaty. And for non-profit organizations, we also ask for the statutes. So now we are going to enter the LEAR appointment. And it's not enough that you have a PIC already validated. You need to appoint a LEAR, and this is mandatory for all validated participants. And again, I insist, all the communication has to be made via the participant register. So what does the LEAR do? And now you will see why I call him the King LEAR. So it notifies the EU of changes in legal data. So as I mentioned in one of the first slides, if by any chance the entity changes legal name or legal address, the LEAR is the person who will inform us. So it's really the intermediary between the central validation services and the legal entity. He also submits legal and financial documents if so required. He manages the access rights of persons in the organization. So he grants access to, he names account administrators and also other individuals authorized to sign. And these individuals authorized to sign, they can sign contracts, grant agreements, and also their amendments. And they can also sign financial statements. LEAR appointment documents. We ask for the LEAR appointment letter, which is automatically generated by the system once you finish filling in the data of the LEAR. We also ask for official proof of identity of both the legal representative and the LEAR, and also the proof of empowerment of the legal representative. So you will ask me probably here, Maria, can the LEAR and the legal representative be the same person? Yes, they can. as long as the legal representative has the power of representing the entity in its entirety without any kind of limitations. So no financial limitations, no limitations on the time of the mandate. As long as there are no limitation on his mandate, that's what matters to us. The leader can be whoever you would like, but the leader can also be the same person as the legal representative. So communication, once again, always via the participant register. And here I always like to mention, when we contact you, you will receive a notification via email. And I always recommend that you go straight to the participant register. And why? Because maybe we are sending you a document in attachment. And if you open the message in your mobile or on your email address, you will not see the attachment. You will not be able to open the attachment. So if you receive a request from us, please go to the participant register so that you ensure you can see the message in its integrity. And now, very important, if you lose access to a declared or a valid PIC. So if the PIC has never been validated, you just have to create a new PIC. You inform our services and we will link the former PIC to the new one and you can start immediately working with a new PIC. If your PIC is already validated, it's also not an issue. You lose access to the PIC, the leader is on holiday or left the organization, not an issue. You can appoint a new leader and you can do this by activating the leader recovery procedure functionality in the participant register. And you have the link here underneath to do so. And I think I reached the end of my presentation. I suggest we leave the questions maybe for after the presentation at the end. Thank you. So I give the floor to my colleague Konstantinos.
Hello to all. Try to look here, look at you. I don't know how I will do it. So we're gonna discuss about the financial. Yes, now I'm okay because the people from the home don't listen to me. Yes, true. So first of all, I welcome you. We're gonna discuss together about the financial capacity assessment. So if you have been selected, you're gonna be reached by the external validation services for your financial capacity assessment. First of all, let's see the legal basis. We have three documents, let's say. One is the financial regulation. You see that it has been updated in 2024. The rules of legal entity validation, legal appointment, and etc. And the call of proposal. The call of proposal is specific for your call. In each call of proposal, you have a section called the eligibility and financial criteria. There, you have to read it for other reasons also, but for the financial capacity assessment, there you're gonna see if you are obliged to be under a financial capacity assessment. Not all of entities are obliged to. Let's see more specific about that. When is an FCA needed? For whom? Whether we are coordinators, and if the requested amount is equal or greater than 500,000. So you see, it's not for everyone. Again, I recommend you to read the call of your specific call of proposal. There it will be very clear. But some are excluded, which are public bodies, international organization, and as we said before, if you have individual grant request less than 60,000, that amount, it seems it is, let's say, minimum to the EU, so we don't ask for a financial capacity assessment. Also may be requested for other beneficiary or affiliate entities. Meaning what? Meaning that no matter what the call of proposal is saying, if the operational unit thinks that we should perform an assessment, it will be asked by them, so we will perform it. Okay. Normally, it's not the case. What are the supporting documents?
let me put everything here. Okay. So the supporting documents that we need for your assessment is the financial state document as we know, the financial statement as we know, a balance sheet, a profit and loss account, and explanatory note or annexes if they are available. We do need the financial audit report. When? Only when we have action grants more than 700, we have this threshold. So when we have action grants more than 700, 705, 750, 100,000 euros, or operating grants more than 100,000 euros. Here I would like to point out, no, let me go back. This is the normal, okay, situation, let's say. As I heard before, we have companies that are newly established. It's a different situation there. We're gonna conduct those companies in order what to upload. Okay, obviously they don't have a financial statement closed or approved or anything. Or perhaps we even have some entities that are similar cash-based accounting. So also they cannot provide that. But we will contact them if this is the case. So the assessment has to be done for the two most recent closed and approved financial years. This is the key point here, what we mean recent and how we define recent. You see down that is written when once completed, the assessment is valid for 18 months. This is also the threshold that you use to define the most recent closed and approved financial year, meaning that if you have a financial year that is has ended in 31st of December 2024, we take this and we add, you take this also in order for you to know what to provide us. You take this and you add 18 months. So if we add, let's say 31st of December 2024, if we add 18 months, we now are in 30 of June 2026. 2026, 18 months. Now we're in July. So the financial statement for 2024 are obsolete. We're gonna come back to you and ask for 2025, sorry. So keep that in mind when you upload financial data, that the 18 months rules is very important in order for you what to upload, in order for you to what to expect from us, what we're gonna ask you back. All the documents should be in official languages. If they are not in EU language, for example, Serbian, Ukrainian, or whatever, we're going to ask for a translation by you. You have to upload the translation, not us. We don't have to go translate. Free translation are accepted, should be dated and signed. And again, this is how you see it in the participant register. As Maria pointed out, we communicate through the participant register. Okay, keep that in mind. We send messages through that. We receive documents through that. So if you are to the participant register, you're going to see in the financial capacity assessment tab that you have down to provide necessary financial information. If for some reason you see something different from the one that here in the presentation, it is because sometimes they change the appearance of the financial of the participant register. Still, the logic is the same. And also in the messages, you're gonna see the message subject like that, saying that please, you are selected, let's say, for a financial capacity assessment, please upload the documents. Here in the end, we have the links for the guidance documents that we have mentioned in the start. So I think I'm finished. I don't want to keep you anymore. Thank you very much. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much to my colleagues from the validation service. I don't know if we have any question for them, but this is steps that you have to go through. You cannot avoid validation and then financial capacity if you are in the categories where this is requested. Do you have any question from the audience that is connected? No? No? Nothing. So thank you very much, colleagues, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you. Thank you. So welcome back to the Info Day or the Self-Fund for Current Steel program. we are having a nice, interesting, and very, I would say really interesting, because it's the first time that we are doing the dual use, and we are going to have a lot of presentation on this aspect. Apparently, the feedback from the restaurant is positive, so we will do it again in the next info day. So this is already positive, much better than the sandwich that we had last time. Before giving the floor to my colleague, I would like just to give a few points about the agenda. We are going to have two very interesting presentations from our colleagues from DG Research, from two different units. The one that is more horizontal and in charge of preparing the potential dual use for FP10. And then from our parent unit in DG Research. And then a little bit of a presentation on how to make a proposal for the dual use. We are not repeating what you got this morning, but we are going to focus on the differences, that there are many related to the submission, but also to the evaluation of the proposal, and then the management of this project over the project cycle. We are also going to have later on a presentation on the ownership controls assessment that is really linked to the limit of the dual use calls that we are going to implement. At the end, we are going to have one-to-one session with the proposers for this dual use, when you can exchange with my staff, with me, and with our program managers, preliminary ideas, and try to clarify any other aspect that you consider difficult. But I will not take the floor too long, and I will immediately give the floor to Dominic for his presentation. Dominic, the floor is yours. Come here. Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much, Sebastiano. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to tell you a little bit why are we actually experimenting with you. Because it's the first type of a call like that, first time that we actually ever organized within the relatively civilian program. And we are going to do one also with the European Innovation Council, but it's going to come a bit later this year. So a bit of background on the approach to dual use research and innovation at the EU level, which will then be followed by more details from my colleague Cyril. To understand a little bit what we are doing and why we are actually looking at opening the EU programs to dual use technologies, you need to look historically into technology development overall. For a big part of modern human history, the military needs, the defense needs were actually driving technological innovation, just to put it very short. This has been changing over the decades, especially with the emergence of digital technologies, where you saw that the civilian sector is driving the change more and more. After the fall of the Iron Curtain, after the end of the Cold War, we could see that development has accelerated. And actually right now, over the last 3 decades at least, we see that in terms of the development of critical technologies, it is the civilian sector, it is the civilian R&I. Sorry for that, I forgot to. No, my family started traveling back on holidays, so okay, I hope everything is fine. Otherwise, they wouldn't call. Anyway, so when we look at the last 3 decades, we see that a lot of the development in the area of critical technologies has been happening and has originated from the civilian sector. In the last few years, especially since the Russian war on Ukraine, the policymakers have realized that there is an important capacity within the civilian sector that needs to be tapped into by the defense sector in order to boost our defense capabilities and in order to strengthen our defense readiness. So that's the general picture in terms of the why we are actually looking at it. Now, more concretely, a lot of the work has happened since the start of the mandate of the current commission. And I would just mention things that you know, I'm sure, very well. the 4 strategic reports from 2024, which was the Letta report on the single market, the Draghi report on the competitiveness, the Ninisto report on the preparedness, and the Hayter report, which was in fact the interim evaluation on Horizon Europe report that pointed the way forward for the Horizon Europe program. All of these reports, in one way or another, actually recognize the need to build together in synergy on the civilian and defense research and innovation capabilities in order to strengthen and accelerate our technology development in Europe, and in order to boost our defense readiness. Now, what followed was a series of European initiatives linked to defense and security in 2025 that pointed to the need for proper civil defense coordination. Here, I would just mention the joint white paper on European defense readiness 2030 from March, which was followed by 2 important documents in the autumn, Defense Readiness Roadmap 2030 and the Defense Industry Transformation Roadmap that looked at how the European defense industry needs to transform. Especially the last document paid quite a lot of attention to the capacities of the civil market and civil research and innovation actors to support defense readiness and to support the transformation of European defense industry. We also had important initiatives such as European Preparedness Union Strategy and Protect EU, a European internal security strategy, all of them going from different angles in the same direction. In terms of looking at dual-use RNI at the level of DG Research and Innovation, so looking from the perspective of Horizon Europe, from the perspective of the civilian program, our starting point was a white paper on dual-use RNI, or dual-use R&D, which we published in January 2024. It was a very early document where we actually identified a number of options through which Horizon Europe program could be open to dual use. We launched public consultations, we listened to stakeholders, we listened to member states, and we produced a report from these consultations. That paper did not point to any solutions or did not value or evaluate potential solutions, but it just presented the options. We also had 2 important independent expert reports which were both published in June 2025. One came from the expert group on economic and social impact of research and innovation, which is a high-level expert group inside DGRTD, actually, tapping on the expertise of high-level experts from outside that looked at dual use and how to make the most use of research and innovation investments in that area. And we also had a separate report on more practical report on how to unlock the potential of dual use research and innovation in Horizon Europe. All these reports can obviously be found online. I will not go into more details of that. So what are we actually proposing? I'm sure you are quite familiar with the Commission proposal for the next Horizon Europe and the European Competitiveness Fund published in July. So what you can find in there is that both the Competitiveness Fund and Horizon Europe may support dual use. We don't say a lot how that will be done. That's deliberate, and we are in conversations with member states and the Parliament how to do it in practice. But there's a clear openness of Horizon Europe to dual use, and we actually eliminated the criterion that Horizon Europe will only fund civilian applications. More notably also, beyond dual-use RNI, the European Innovation Council will also be able to support defense applications or defense startups, which will not be the case for the other parts of Horizon Europe. And now going to the first sentence that I said is, why are we experimenting with you? Is that for the current Horizon Europe program, which was amended through the Defense Minimum Omnibus, we have some possibilities, and of course I know that RFCS is not part of Horizon Europe, that we opened up some possibilities of Horizon Europe to fund dual use and defense, and that possibility was open to the European Innovation Council. Now, at the same time, since there was a legal opportunity and we actually want to test how we can develop dual use calls, what will be the practical implications of opening a program to dual use, the program which is primarily dealing with civilian actors. We have these 2 pilots. One is on the EIC, and as I said, because of the legal opportunity for the Research Fund for Coal and Steel, we also decided, thanks to colleagues Cyril and colleagues in our sister unit, to also develop a dedicated topic for dual use under this program that could mirror a little bit the way in which we imagine supporting dual use in the future. That's all for me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Cyril.
Dominic.
Please
and I
take
will
it from
give
there.
immediately the floor to Cyril for the second presentation on the political need for this dual use call.
Good afternoon. So Dominic just explained to you the overall context of why defense matters for our research and innovation policies, and in particular in the next Horizon Europe. Now I will explain to you why, when we talk about this RFCS dual use call, it's not experimenting for the sake of experimenting. It's because we believe that there is really a case for dual use research in the case of steel. So let's see how I move this. Is it? Oh no, it's just here. Voila. So what I'm going to talk to you about is especially the Steel and Metals Action Plan from last year. It was a European Commission communication from March 2025, and that really provided the policy framework for future orientations for steel and metals. And if you have not read it, I assume lots of you in this room will have read it attentively, but I would recommend that you reread it if it was already the case, because this is really a key document to understand our perspective and where we come from, in particular with this dual use call. Just to recall briefly, the Steel and Metals Action Plan really covers the whole of Commission policies, not just research. And so it is about 6 main pillars: clean and affordable energy, preventing carbon leakages, protecting and promoting industrial capacities in Europe, circularity for metals, jobs and skills as well in the sectors, and finally, de-risking decarbonization projects through lead markets and public support. And this is this 6th pillar, which is particularly important for us today, because this is, in fact, actually, this pillar is not just about decarbonization, it is also quite very much also about competitiveness of the industries, but about how we can support it through programs. And so this is where RFCS comes in and is mentioned, highlighted as an important program in the action plan. And it goes also beyond the purely civilian users to also look at the dual use and in particular defense potential of steel and metals, and therefore of the research and innovation programs that we have to promote these sectors. So just to give you a few as a reminder, because I assume a lot of you indeed will have read it, a few things that this Steel and Metals Action Plan say about the defense sector and steel and metals. The steel and metals sectors are indispensable to Europe's industrial fabric, resilience, economic security, defense, and social stability. All these metals are essential for defense, and they give examples of what a battle tank or an artillery system represents in terms of steel, what an aircraft represents in terms of aluminium, etc. And it goes on to conclude that to ensure a stable and resilient supply chain for these materials is really critical to our European defense technological and industrial base, to ensure preparedness, internal security, meeting defense and aerospace needs of Europe, and in short, for our tech sovereignty. So this is why we think that we need to support dual use and defense through our programs. And how will we do it? So there also the Steel and Metals Action Plan provided important announcements, two in particular as regards the RFCS. The first one is that the Commission will launch flagship initiatives, mobilizing 150 million euros in 2026 and 2027, and also contributing to strengthening the European defense research dimension of the sector. And so that's, of course, what we are now delivering through the big ticket calls of 2026. And there were already some of such calls, which I believe were quite successful in the first half of this year. And this dual use call is the second wave, if you wish, of those big ticket calls, but dedicated this time to dual use. And you will have noted that it says 26 and 27. So this is something I wanted to point out strongly as well. This is not just a an experiment one-off. This is indeed the first time we try a dual-use dedicated call, but with a clear intention to continue to take the lessons from this call. We hope it will be successful because we believe there is a lot of potential for it, but we wish to continue in future, and in particular in 2027, we have this commitment. And then the second important announcement made in the Steel and Metal Action Plans for RFCS was that the Commission would propose an overall reform of the program to simplify, to further accelerate investments in steel research. But there also, in the context of this reform, the action plan of the Commission mentioned including research on defense applications. And this is indeed the case. I don't know if you have followed that aspect, but we have proposed in December quite wide-ranging reform of the RFCS fund. It was actually made a high priority by the Council because they adopted the reform on the 29th of June, so just a few weeks ago. And between December and June, if you're familiar with usual European legislative process, this is actually quite fast. So this was really, really prioritized. And the reform will be effective from the 1st of January 2027. And so we will have, just to remind, up to 120 million euros per year until 2034. So the fund will continue all this time with better rates of co-financing, a number of other improvements, and dual-use research explicitly mentioned as an objective for the fund. Of course, it's not the sole objective. There will be still a lot of civilian research in it, but it is an identified objectives, and also a whole section of the new decisions are explaining exactly how we are going to proceed in terms of addressing and managing all the security aspects of dual-use proposals. And this actually is already very well prepared and consistent with what our friends in the executive agency are already preparing for this year, and you will hear all about it now. So that's what I wanted to flag. I'll just finish with a few considerations at a very high level on, so steel is important and steel research is important for defense, but how can it also be important for steel, for use sectors? And in our view, having those dual-use projects by design supported through the RFCS would have quite a positive impact in a number of areas. Of course, on the overall innovation level of the sector, because the very demanding characteristics of the defense applications mean that you will be at the cutting edge of what we can do with steel and steel production. And for example, on steel alloys, special steels, quality steels where the EU can play on its strengths, and that can also have an effect and a positive impact afterwards in nourishing lead markets in the defense sector that will have, we hope, positive impact for the sector as a whole. Obviously, decarbonization will remain an important aspect also in these areas, and we can also hope for a positive impact in jobs with very specialized positions for this particular sector. But in fact, you know better than I do in this, and I very much hope that all the proposals that you are going to prepare will prove this right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to both speakers for your time, for coming here, to the REA for this presentation. So you had the really political point of view and the reason why we are having this call. Now we are going to start to present how to implement it for both you and us. And who is going to be Spiridon, starting with the presentation. We are going to have a question and answer session later on when we finish this, and we will take all the questions together. So Spiridon, floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello again. Good afternoon from my side. I will start by presenting some key points, budget and duration. As Sebastiano mentioned earlier, in the afternoon, we're going to try not to repeat the same things that we said this morning, but focus on the differences. There may be a bit of repetition, but we'll try really to highlight the differences. First, we have 25 million at our disposal. We're talking about pilot and demonstration proposals, and the EU funding will be 50%. Then our recommendation for the duration is projects to be between 36 and 54 months. And then our recommendation for the budget is projects between 5 and 25 million euro. Of course, if we fund the proposal with 25, it means that it will consume the whole budget, but it's possible. Then some words about the objectives first. So we have two objectives coming from the legal basis of RFCS. The first one at the left deals with sustainable steelmaking and finishing processes, and the second deals with advanced steel grades and applications. So big difference now in the proposals. The idea is to develop innovative techniques and products and processes with relevance to both civil and the defense markets in the steel sector. What activities can be funded, or in other words, what you have to put inside your proposals when you write them. You have to address at least one of the objectives, of the two objectives that I have mentioned, or both, but at least one. Regarding the TRL, there is quite some flexibility. The techniques should start from a low TRL 3 to 4, and as you can read here, achieve at least 5 or 6. However, if relevant and feasible for the project, there is flexibility to advance up to TRL 8. Then in regards to the exploitation strategy, you have to outline the integration of the outcomes of the project and a preliminary but still important assessment of their economic viability, because we would like to see how the results will behave when they enter commercialization. Then in terms of improvements, we also want to see how the new technologies and techniques do better with respect to what is existing now, with respect to existing installations. So how what you propose can go further, or for new installations, you can use, if relevant, the emission trading system benchmark. And how to demonstrate this? Well, by using energy and material balance assessments in order to make your case, including also emissions. Then, these are three big differences with respect to standard big tickets. You will have to demonstrate in the excellence section how your activities are linked to both civil and defense aspects. Then the second point, it's a restriction. The proposal should not contain any EU classified information. Later on, there will be slides dedicated to security scrutiny, where we will explain a bit more in detail there. It is possible to have classified information as deliverables of the project. This is possible, but in the proposal, it should not be any classified information. Then another restriction, and it's because we want to protect the security of the Union and its member states, we have restrictions in participation. So it is only legal entities established in member states that can participate. This is different from our standard calls. And not only that, but all the participants, be them beneficiaries, affiliated entities, associated, subcontractors, they also should not be directly or indirectly controlled by any country other than a member state of the European Union or by a legal entity established in such a country. So very important restrictions that you need to follow, and we are going to verify. In relation to the last point, there will also be a presentation from our validation colleagues at the end about ownership control assessments at the end of the afternoon. In relation to outcomes, in the proposal, you have to quantify the emission reduction, CO2 reduction, but also, if relevant, other environmental effects that are positive. You need to demonstrate, it's a bit similar with what I mentioned before, how the new technologies or processes achieve at least the same or better quality with current existing processes. If relevant, you can outline any positive health and safety effects. You have to include a deployment plan, talk also about its scalability, how the activities and applications can be applied in different sites, and supported by a business case that has to be credible. And okay, this is normal for every project. You have to disseminate as much as you can, and also, when relevant, contribute to skills and creation of jobs. In relation now to impacts, the first relates to the goals of the European Green Deal, a very important guideline document for us, and in line with other policy guidelines. Then second, it's about innovation and competitiveness in the sector, in the steel sector. And then finally, in the impact section of the proposal, you have to show, and this is going to be scrutinized by our expert evaluators, as all the rest, how your activities will benefit both the civil and the defense sectors. Now, a few words about admissibility. I will not repeat everything because there was a very similar slide that was presented this morning. So all is the same, except for, if you look at the raw completeness, the two last bullet points there read information on security issues document. So this is a new obligation. There will be a presentation about this later on. And also the ownership control document. Again, a new document that you need to fill in carefully. And also there will be a presentation about this at the end of the afternoon. All the rest is the same as this morning, so I will not spend more time on this. In relation to eligibility, as mentioned, it's entities and natural persons from EU member states and also overseas territories. And eligible for funding, it's only entities and or natural persons from the EU member states. This is the same as for a standard call. I've also mentioned the restrictions. These entities should not be directly or indirectly controlled from a country that is not an EU member state. In terms of composition, we need to have at a minimum 2 beneficiaries, independent applicants from 2 different countries. Proposal activities, they must take place in the eligible countries, and in general, there has to be compliance with EU policy interests and priorities. I will now hand over to Dermot for the continuation.
Thank you. So I will concentrate on the evaluation procedure and then the differences also compared to this morning on the Part A preparation of the proposal. So similar to this morning, the call is now open, so you can download all the documents and start your application. And the deadline is the 16th of September, with the evaluation starting immediately from September to November, and then the results, we expect them to send them out late January, early February, with the grant agreement signature expected next April and June. So this morning, I highlighted the 4 steps in the process. In the big tickets dual use, we have an additional step, which is the hearing. The hearing is a part of the panel review. So following the consensus group meetings, we will have the hearings. So the hearings are there to support the evaluation committee and are a part of the panel review meeting that takes place afterwards. So why do we have hearings? It gives the applicants an opportunity to clarify any concerns that the experts may have on the proposal. So they will ask some questions during the hearing itself. And how do we do it? So all the applicants are invited to participate to the hearing. Although it's not compulsory, you will receive an invitation. If you don't come, there's no negative aspect of this, but it is an opportunity for you to come and clarify some questions that the evaluators may have. It's a physical meeting only, and it's held here in Brussels in the evaluation center. Just some additional information on the aspects of the hearing itself. So the duration of each hearing is 30 minutes maximum. Each proposal should be represented by the coordinator and then one additional person who is usually a key representative of the consortium and maybe a technical person that can answer some of the technical questions that might be proposed. Explanations and clarifications are limited to the questions that are asked during the hearing. What this means is no new information. So it's only the information that was in the proposal on the submission. So no additional presentations are allowed. So that's the aspects of the hearing. Everything else is the same. So following the hearing, it moves into the panel meeting where the outcomes of the hearing are discussed among all the panel of the experts, and then the ranking list is formed. The award criteria. So as the same I mentioned this morning, there's 3 award criteria. The scoring range is the same. So the proposals to be considered for funding must pass all individual thresholds, which is a 3, and then must pass the overall threshold, which is 10. So that's the differences in the process. Everything else is the same as mentioned this morning. So on preparing part A of the proposal, here again, check all the documents. They are different. So on the Funding and Tenders portal, you will see specific call documents on the dual use call. Then the other thing that's different, as Spiridon mentioned, is in the annexes. So you have a separate document there, the information on security issues and the ownership control document. Once you start your application, you'll come to this page like this morning. The main thing again, it's to check that you're in the right topic. So you're applying for the dual use call, check the call data that you're in the correct topic. Then what's different than this morning, you have additional annexes to upload. So in addition to the Part B proposal and the detailed budget table, you will have an additional Part B security section to upload. That's a compulsory, mandatory document to upload. And then at the very end, you see the ownership control document. And this will be explained later on and how to complete these documents. All these documents can be downloaded from the portal itself on the left-hand side, the templates. And then you edit the forms, similar to this morning. So the differences here is this morning you had fixed keywords. In the dual use big tickets call, you will only have the free keywords and the abstract. So like this morning, please pay attention, choose the best keywords related to your proposed area of research. You can select or write as many free keywords as you wish, up to a maximum of 200 characters. in that field, and then your abstract. For the descriptor, you only have one panel. It's the SMAP objectives, and then the descriptor related to the topic. So whether your proposed area research is Article 8 or Article 9. And now I move to the preparing the proposal. So Oscar will cover this part B.
Okay. As Spiridon mentioned, there are two elements that they are different from the presentation this morning and other aspects. This is a big ticket, so has specific requirements as a big ticket, and is also a dual use, so has a specific requirement as a dual use. Okay. Two elements because Cyril presented the SMAP aspect. So we have two articles in the legal base that they are related to the SMAP, Article 8 and Article 9. And here I highlighted just the element that you have to choose when you are claiming the objective of your proposal. So these aspects are concrete for this call, and you have to choose at least one of these objectives. Now, I go directly to the point that the expert has to assess and is linked to the presentation from Spiridon. It's very important that you demonstrate the link between the civil and the defense aspect of the research. It's not that you present a civil and then you present a defense. So you need to demonstrate the link. This is why we wrote this. So I'm highlighting the keyword that is in the call document and Spiridon presented. So the expert will assess these aspects. How they assess? They will assess as in the methodology that you have to present. Okay, so state of the art, everything should be linked and should demonstrate that there are a correlation between the civil and the defense elements that you are presenting in your proposal. I don't know, you want to prepare a new high-grade steel for dual-use armor, an armor for vehicles or for, I don't know, defense vehicles. So you need to demonstrate that there is a standard research in the civil section, but there is another element that has to be tested for the defense. That's all. This is an example. I'm not a specialist on steel, but just to take, to give you an example, and then the demonstration of the link is the most relevant. So another point that is very relevant in PDP, in big tickets that they are PDP, you need to demonstrate the technical feasibility. And it's written in the presentation from Spiridon that you have to present a mass and energy balance. So I remind you that it's a little bit different from the presentation that I did, where it was not a requirement in the annual call, and here is a requirement. So will be assessed, and if it is not presented, can be declared as a weakness. Just to remind the risk that you have if you are not presenting what we request, and the expert has to evaluate. So it's very important that you check correctly the Spiridon section, because it's very important that you address correctly the elements that they are there in activities to be funded, and in the section of impact, the expected impact. So this will be taken into account from the expert in order to evaluate the proposal. The other point is the impact, because it's another element. So again, we need to demonstrate the impact in the civil and in the defense areas. So it's linked to the sector, steel sector, but now you have to demonstrate how this steel sector and in the civil section. I don't know, we have a question from Dillinger that they have separated the two sections, defense and civil, okay, in the company. When they came here, they were asking, yes, we apply for defense in the defense agency. They have defense project and they apply there. And now they have civil project that they apply to RFCS. Now they have the option to put together. Now it's more an internal decision on how to structure the proposal, because this was the question for them. They were working separately and now they have the option to work together. So it's more an internal decision, and they wanted to know the level of confidentiality and all these elements that has been presented here and will be detailed afterwards in the presentation from Diego. Okay, so it's very important that you demonstrate that the element that we are requesting is strengthening the strategic autonomy of the European Union. So this project has to demonstrate with the dual use project, we are trying to get this impact, okay, in the European Union. So remember, it's the sector we have an impact, and in the European Union, it's very important to show up this autonomy, okay? We want to create this self-autonomy aspects, and you need to highlight it. Quantitative, because it's a PDP, so we are thinking that it's a big ticket project, and we expect from you to connect. There was the question before. How do you demonstrate this in this type of project, blah, blah, blah. That you create scenarios. You have to create a scenario. You need to know, to demonstrate that you know the sector, you know the defense industry, what are the needs, and you are connecting your research with this defense industry, okay? So again, we repeat, and here in this impact section, it's very important that you take into account that there is an obligation to present a preliminary economic analysis. And if you are funded, we will request for a business case. Okay, it's a compulsory deliverable at the end of the project. So keep in mind that you have the big tickets condition, but now you have, let's say, not double work, but you need to take into account another aspect that is the defense area. Okay, it's very important that you don't take, I mean, something that can happen, and we have seen in some projects, that one of the projects that applied to us is they took a defense project and they converted it in a dual use. The experts were not happy. It was happening last year in the annual call. Okay, we had one project, but was clear a defense project applied in a defense program, and they converted in a dual use. They started to present the civil aspect of this defense project. Was not so clear for the expert, and they were not happy with the way that it was presented. But I'm telling you, exists this possibility because we have one case in the annual call and was not well presented. So in this case, we are giving more hints in order that when you have a specific call, you can present better your proposal. And the expert will be able to evaluate both aspects in a proper way. So I think I give the floor to Diego.
Okay. So just to continue on, can you hear me? Yes. You heard already a couple of times talking about security aspects, and in particular, security scrutiny. Now, we are going to try and explain a little bit better what this is actually about. Now, the context a little bit should be very clear for you, I guess, now, but nevertheless, we need this procedure to identify potential security risks coming from the outcome of research activities. And of course, once we identify them, we need to prevent the misuse of this outcome, of these results, from criminal and or terrorist purposes, so that those results will fall into, let's say, bad hands and being misused. Okay, but in practice, how are we going to do this? In terms of implementing this new procedure into the proposal evaluation? Well, in general, we have to identify the security concerns, so try and see in each proposal what's the problem, what are the issues from the security point of view, to see if any information, any deliverable should be subject to a certain classification. We're going to explain what is this, probably you know well, but still. If the applicant has taken all the necessary measures,
and in case not, or in general, to provide some recommendation. Okay, the complete process overview involving all the news, all the new elements involving a dual use proposal are sketched here. We have the security self-assessment. That is what we are going to focus the most in this presentation. And this happened, during the submission process. So this is made by the applicant. Then during the grant preparation, so after the evaluation, we have the security scrutiny properly said. And then eventually we have the security requirement management, which we are not going to discuss. But this is the complete involvement, let's say, of all the security aspects during the whole lifetime of the project, from a proposal, then project, in case it's financed, and then its conclusion. Now, a little bit more in detail about Part A. I'm sure that you recall this form, this slide that was presented this morning by my colleague Dermot. He said that for the annual call, this is actually something which you may, as applicant, not consider. Well, if you are going to submit something into the dual use call, you really should, because this is where really the differences for you is going to kick in. There are mostly three main sections that you should pay attention to. EU classified information, potential misuse of the outcome, and other issues. Before we go on, you will see in the next slides a lot of this use of acronyms. SCN, EUCI, what are those? Just to explain. SCN stands for sensitive, easy enough. Sometimes it's called, it's not exactly the same, but mostly the same, SNC, sensitive non-classified. It's another acronym for almost the same thing. Or then EUCI, which stands for EU classified information. Classified is above sensitive. This is just a rule of thumb to understand the way it is. When you see EUCI, then be more alert than when you see SCN. Okay? So, they'll be going to a little bit more into detail. If you need to click yes in one of these boxes, because you need to, well, first question that you are going to see is this, about the presence of background classified information. This is quite self-explanatory. If you are going to use some information in your proposal, which is already under any classification, EU or national from member states, well, say it and indicating the number of pages that's relevant. Same goes for the line below. Is the activity going to generate EU classified foreground information? So this is, do we have any classified information before? Yes or no? If yes, indicate. Are we going to generate classified information? Yes, no, please indicate. Then we will face also this question, which is basically a no. This is a question about the participation of non-EU countries. Well, we just said, my colleague said that these countries will not be allowed. So this is simply not applicable for RFCS. Simple as that. That's the easy one. Then, again, about misuse. This is the second big box. What is misuse potential? We said it already. Misuse, basically the potential to generate results from a project that may be maliciously misused by any third parties, causing problems, basically. Can be anything, of course. Can be something physical, can be technology, can be anything, knowledge. I mean, anything can be misused if you think about it. In case of unidentified risk of misuse, well, then the data must be protected according to a proper EU classification that again can be sensitive, can be or classified, and we are going to see what classified exactly means in a few, because there are several levels of classification. Then third box, other security issues. Here you may provide additional information about something else. In particular, is the project involving information subject to national security restrictions? Or in general, are additional security issue or security concern which are not being covered by the previous boxes, by the previous sections? If anything, please highlight it. Sometimes can seem a little bit redundant, but it makes sense. Now, security self-assessment. Here, it's a free text box that, if you recall, is part of the first slide I've shown, the second one actually. Here, the security issues and the measures which are deployed to solve or to avoid these issues indeed must be specified. So in these free text boxes, or box, sorry, you may write down what are you going to do to solve or to mitigate the issues rising from the presence of sensitive or classified information into your proposal. This will also be used by the properly set security scrutiny to come to you, to help you, to support you after the assessment and see what can be done to solve the situation. If you look into the part B, this is about part A, you will see that in section 4.2 there is a box that is just pointing out to this. So this is something that has to be filled to comply with both. And then, okay, then you validate in the very same way that you would validate a proposal for the annual call. You just click the nice button, of course, paying attention to the red and yellow marks that you may find, errors and warnings. Then again, furthermore, should I say, there is another specific section, sorry, which is not really part of the part B. It's something additional, mandatory, the security section indeed, self-assessment, that you should again provide to support the security scrutiny. You have to provide a draft of the security aspect letter. This is what the form is called, in which you will, I'm just listing the most relevant items that you have to fill in. The list of all classified information according to you as a consortium proposing the project. List of all classified information to be used or generated, and their classification level according to your assessment. And now we are going to see, next slide, I guess, which are the criteria that you may use to self-assess your proposal. Then you may have the need to specify the beneficiaries requiring facility security clearance or personal security clearance. This goes a little bit more into detail, but something that is foreseen. Everything is explained in a security classification guide that is also part of the file that provides detailed guidance on the document and deliverables classification. So the reasons why some classification label has been given to a certain information. And then also the eventual appointing of security staff where classified information is involved and so on. It's quite detailed. Here you can see some examples of the form that you are going to find. You see the Security Advisory Board in case it has to be appointed, PSO, additional sensitive information for security reasons. It's quite comprehensive. Now, we said before that you may face classified background So whatever has been classified before, but you need to use for the development of your research, and the classified foreground. So what is going to be produced? Well, you have to provide a security label, how to assess the level of sensitiveness of your information. Can be public, so nothing to say, fully open, fine. Can be sensitive, so it must indeed remain a little bit confidential and should be avoided to be distributed freely only on a need-to-know basis. Then what I was saying about this security non-classified category, which is basically the same, but goes a little bit beyond just giving more annoyances to the applicants. And then we go into the realm of the EU classified information properly said. Let's develop a little bit this last category. Let's start from the bottom. You may have 4 levels of EU classified information. Can be restricted, can be confidential, secret, or top secret. Well, I will not go into the details of what those definitions are. They're basically incrementing more and more the level of classification required to the document because of the importance of the relevance for the national interest, national security, the harm that can bring a misuse or a disclosure of such information. It goes restricted, confidential, secret. Well, secret is the top, is the maximum that we may reach in our dual use proposal. Top secret is not allowed, also because it will have practical implications which are quite complex to solve. Also, secret and confidential would, I would say, not jeopardize, but create several issues from the point of view of data handling, data management, data sharing. Beyond restricted is already quite complex. And this you have to assess yourself. Then eventually the file will go into the hands of the national authorities and experts that will perform the security scrutiny properly said, the second step after the project has been, proposal, sorry, has been eventually, maybe financed. The issues can be multiple, as you may imagine, just outlining the most common. No security concern, green light, go ahead, no problem. Or the most common, I will say, it's there are some security recommendations, so maybe some deliverable will be labeled at a higher confidentiality level, can be. Some position, some structure that were not foreseen, were deemed not really necessary, will be actually strongly advised, let's say, for the success of the proposal. Or the proposal can just be labeled as too sensitive to be funded, maybe because it goes into the top secret realm, so no way. Or because the security scrutiny will come saying that, sorry, the consortium is not proving, the applicant is not proving to be sufficiently skilled or prepared to face such challenges. So no, that can be an outcome, yes. Security recommendation and classification is indeed the outcome of the security scrutiny process and becomes part of the grant agreement. So it's officially inserted into the grant agreement. Like the normal flux of information, first it starts from the proposal and then it goes into the grant agreement, same here. That's it. Those are some useful links that you may use, you may consult, you may follow in case you want some more information from both administrative and legal point of view. And voila, that's it. So any question, please shoot. I guess the guys from the
Yeah, but we have a first question and answer session. So thanks a lot. I would like to thanks a lot to my staff because organizing this call has been quite complex. We've tried to fit all the different purposes and the setup that is quite different from our usual job. So thanks a lot to all of you, coordinators, program managers, etc., for this setup. I think that this was quite interesting also for you, because preparing a proposal is quite different from a normal call or from a normal big ticket. We are here at your disposal for further answering your question today, or if you have other questions, you can send definitely to our mailbox, and we will be doing it in the best possible way. Do we have any question from here? Yes. This gentleman who is bringing the microphone. Yeah.
I have a country-specific question. Sorry for that. I'm from Germany and from a German university. Have you ever heard of I think in English it's called civil clause? So most of the German universities would actually not be allowed to participate in dual use stuff. And dual use is then often a gray zone, but typically this can cause problems. Have you any opinion or comment on that?
I do not have any opinion because I'm the official the European Commission. I cannot have a single opinion. This is something that was already said to me. Also, we have a university in Italy that they say it will be difficult to do dual use. We are fearing student protest, etc., etc. But means our presentation from my colleague of the digital research is quite clear. This is something where we are going to be, and we will harvest all the possible good proposal from all the member states. And I hope that also Germany will participate in some way.
Right now, I don't know if I would be allowed to be honest.
But maybe you are also changing your regulation at a certain moment. We will see. Means there are a lot of things, but as I said, this is something that has been carefully analyzed by my colleagues in digital research, etc. And this is something that we will take into consideration for the future.
Thank you.
We have three questions from that side. Achilles, the last one. Costanzo. But it's good that we are already not allowing you to talk.
Does it work now? Yes, it works.
No, it's not working.
So the automation part is very attractive for the possible dual use. Unfortunately, it doesn't involve materials in a very important section. However, I would like to give an answer to the questions of the colleague.
Use the microphone close to your yeah.
Because the the situation that you mentioned is already valid for example, in Italy, in UK, and as far as I know, also in France. The point, how is it solved? It is solved simply that the work to be done for dual use or for military application, it doesn't matter, there is no difference, has to be carried out outside the university, because the problem is the university that is not adapted to respect, for example, NATO standards. So this is the only way to avoid a possible intrusion. And I suppose it creates a problem. It depends on the topics, because there are, if you wanted to participate doing the work into your university, you have to select topics that are not dangerous in the sense explained by the colleagues. And it works this way since 30, 40. There's no question of today.
Thank you very much, Costanzo. We will see if we can offer you a contract for to be associated to the unit. Okay, lady. It's not working, your microphone. It's not for us, it's for the people that are connected. Yeah.
Hi, Bettina Scheigle from the Julius Office of the German Research Organizations. I've got a slightly different view in Germany, but maybe we'll discuss that in the pause. My main overarching question for this particular session would be if this is a test balloon for what might be coming in FP10 and beyond. We also got it within the EIC Accelerator. We've also got a dual use call in the Digital Euro program. What exactly are you testing? The capability of the applicants to deal with the calls, the outcomes of the projects that are being proposed, the feasibility of the defense and civil industry to work together. Like, what are your criteria that you will be looking at to see how things will be implemented within FP10?
Dominic, do you want to intervene, please? I think that this is, for me, it's all of them, but it means, Dominic, come.
Yes, indeed. I mean, many of those things, but I would not say the outcomes of the project because obviously the projects will be a bit too long to have the outcomes before we launch the next framework program. But indeed, we are testing the different approaches. With the EIC, it's actually a bottom-up call, which means that it's simply open, and proposers may present dual use cases or not. Here, it's a dedicated call to dual use, and these are exactly the type of things that we are reflecting on for the future Horizon Europe, on how we would be actually drafting the topics and in which way we will be opening the program to dual use. So we are testing the model, but we are also testing how our applications will look like, how the applicants will react to that, what kind of applications we will get, whether the call will have successful, good applications or not. We test evaluation systems, we test how the security scrutiny will be looking like, so also the implementation modalities. So we test all of those aspects actually. And in parallel, we have discussions with the member states and the parliament on how to actually do it in the next Horizon Europe.
So again, you see how important is our call for them and for you, for us. So fantastic. Do we have any other question? Sorry.
So, Akhilesh from eStep. I have one question on the eligibility criteria for the companies. For example, if you are located legally registered in EU, but owned by somebody outside from EU. So how do you deal? Not eligible?
Not eligible, period.
Okay.
Very easy.
Thank you.
Do we have any? Oh, Brian. It's good that we have a question also from the call part of our program. Positive.
Okay, obviously I can't ask a question about coal because it's not included in this, but thank you for the presentation from Dominic and Cyril. That was very interesting to get that overview of what's going on here. It's all fascinating. Looking to the future, could we expect to see more calls related to products? Because the call that we have at the moment seems more related to the production of steel and the decarbonisation of that production rather than to new defence products per se. So, and then if that happens, then you might get interest from the coal industry in terms of new materials produced from carbon, for example.
But we'll ask Cyril to reply, means they are the political part, so they have the.
Well, I'm not going to speculate on the future, but what I can say is that products are not entirely excluded in the sense that, first of all, the TRLs are relatively low. We have voluntarily brought them lower than the other big ticket calls, precisely to be, one step below the products fare. So that's the first element. And then the second element is that circularity, decarbonization, etc., are objectives, but also, still new steel products that can be also part of the objective. So it's not excluded. Actually, it will be interesting to see what proportions of projects we get outside of this goal.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Patrick Lafontaine from STEP. A question about the budget. So there's 25 millions reserved. So in the event that these are not entirely used, what will happen with the remaining part?
As usual, means as authorizing officer by sub-delegation, we can move the budget towards other good proposal if we have a good proposal in the annual call, or just since you have the privilege of having your budget that is never expiring. So it means if we are not using in 2026, we will use in 2027, etc. So don't be preoccupied by this. It means don't fear that we are going to lose money if we are not getting a good proposal in this try. But you've seen how important is this exercise for DG Research, for the European Commission, to see how this new concept of research is going to flourish in the European research area. And I'm sure that we are going to get enough proposal to spend all the budget. This is my personal bet. You know? I will not bet on France against Morocco, but I will bet on this that we are going to get all the all the money spent in this call. Do we have any other question? Apparently no. So I will. There is online. How many?
A lot.
A lot.
Okay, so does the limitation of dual use to EU member states also exclude other NATO countries like UK and Norway?
Yes.
Will the hearing of each proposal, so the hearing will be for each proposal presented in the evaluation, evaluated in the evaluation, or only the proposal intended to be funded?
No, for all of them.
As regards to today's presentation, it appears that the RFCS 2026 reform will not affect proposals submitted in September 2026, where the projects are due to start in 2027. When will the provisions of 2026 reform come into force?
1st of January 2027. So the new future will, as I said this morning, will start for the calls that we are going to have next year. We are planning to have more or less the same timing of the calls, one in spring and one over the summer to be evaluated in November. But we are still working with DG Research for this. And we cannot apply the reform for this call because it has been issued under the previous legal basis, and we cannot make any kind of adjustment. But as I said, as of 1st of January 2027, we will apply the new setup.
Next one is about the open science publishing. So regular calls favor open science publishing. For dual use research, it is more complicated. How should this be considered in the dissemination section of a proposal?
Again, we are starting to think about this. We do not have a final idea, but we are talking about security aspect. We are talking about classified information. We will not ask the project to disclose things that they are sensitive. This is something that comes per se. And but of course, we still are keen in having acknowledgement of the fact that we are financing this project, the fact that there is a support from the European money for this project, all the other aspects that they are not probably related to the security aspect or classified information of the project. There are going to be public deliverables or not public deliverables. The public deliverables are going to be, of course, advertised.
I think it's clear. So regarding classification, may it change and be adopted during the project? This funding may lead to a new conclusion regarding classification.
Once a security scrutiny, as said, so it's difficult to declassify. I mean, I will not put my hand on fire, but I will say no.
Okay. So the current call for dual use, maybe he wants to.
Te lo do il contratto, te lo do, non ti preoccupare. Can we give a microphone?
Declassification is not the most likely event that we can have. It is much more probable, the contrary, to come from declassified to classified. In this case, the problem arises. We have to take into account this point.
This is interesting, that we can raise the level of the security from non-classified to classified over the life of the project. This is something that we will take carefully into consideration.
The next one is about the TRL. So the current 2026 call for dual use is for demonstration projects. So is they are intended to include research in the future?
This is a good question. I think that for the moment, this is an hybrid call because we have lowered the level of the TRL that we are expecting. So we will not be complaining with the consortia if they do not reach TRL 8 like it was the case for the big tickets. And also if they are starting a little bit lower than 3, 4 and they start at 2 or something like that. This is something that we are not going really to take into consideration. Is a pilot and as I said, we are going to be very open. And then in the future, DG Research will decide whether we go for research in dual use or pilot demonstration dual use. This is something that has been discussed a lot. It means we are talking about low TRL because when we are going to high TRL, this is more defense, DEFIS, things like that. So, but we are working on it and we are aware of this, and this is why we are so open with this call about the TRL.
The last one is about, can research proposals, including dual use, be submitted to RFCS beyond this specific call?
I would say no. I would like to have, since the specificity of not only to submit a proposal, but also to evaluate this proposal, that we are required to have experts that they have a security clearance, and my staff will have a security clearance. For doing this, we needed to have only proposal for the dual use that address this call, and they will be evaluated aside from the annual call in a different setup. So I will not invite you to submit proposal on the annual call if you intend to submit for the dual use. Use the dual use call.
That's all.
That's all. Thanks a lot. I will now give the floor to my colleague from, again, validation service, because I think that some information on the ownership control is something that is required. So thank you very much. I thank also the two colleagues from DG Research for their participation. Thanks a lot, and we keep in contact for a good way of making this pilot positive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So like this. Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon. So my name is François-Julien Coffrier, and I work in the Central Validation Service. Oh, it was fast. As an OCA validator. So you've seen our service this morning, explaining how we perform legal validation, financial capacity assessment, but we are also in charge of OCA, so assessing whether you are, if you choose to apply for this call, non-EU or EU controlled. So what do we consider as control?
is the possibility to exercise a decisive influence directly or indirectly through one or more intermediate entities, de jure or de facto, on strategic business decision. This concerns so the beneficiaries, but also affiliated entities and associated partners. So your first link with the ownership and control assessment will be at the proposal stage, where you have to fill a declaration of ownership and control. And in that declaration, you have to state, so you have to analyze your control and ownership chain, and you have to state whether you consider yourself as controlled by an EU entity or nationals, or no, not controlled. So in that, you'll see it looks like this. And the idea is that you have to tick one of the two boxes and choose an option. To do that, you'll have to assess your ownership and your governance with the tools that are available online. And I'll come to it later on in this presentation, so you can see how we work, and you should work in the same way. So the idea of the ownership and control assessment is so to determine whether you are EU or non-EU control. Obviously, if you're a public entity, you don't have to do it because we consider that you're automatically controlled by the state in which you're established. Otherwise, you have to do it. So if you're a private entity, you have to do it. It is now valid for 36 months. And it's valid across the board, so it's not call specific. Once you have an OCA result, it is valid for you for 36 months. How do we proceed? Basically, you will receive a message from us asking you for the supporting documentation to demonstrate that you are EU controlled. How do you receive it? So this is a print screen of the participant portal. It's the same way you receive a request once you do the FCA or you do the legal validation. You also have a little tab for ownership and control. So you receive a message from us requesting a list of documents, and then you have to upload them. So what do we do? So we retrieve the declaration of ownership and control that you've submitted at the proposal stage, stating what you think your control is. Normally, you do a little description, and you have a final tick saying, I am EU control or I am not EU control. And we will check your declaration with the documentation you've provided. So here is a non-exhaustive list of the documents that you can provide and we can ask. So a graph to visualize your ownership and structure chain. I advise you to do that for yourself as well when you fill in the declaration, because it makes things easier to understand and to demonstrate. Shareholder agreements, statutes, investment agreements, IDs for natural persons, and minutes of the last 3 shareholders meeting, for example. So you have, and we have to do as well. So you have to do for your ownership and control declaration, because you have to fill it in, and we have to do to ensure that you have the correct assessment. So we check all the direct and indirect shareholders of your entity. We identify the bodies in your entity and your shareholders eventually, which are the bodies who take strategic decisions. We analyze the rules for appointment and removal of governing bodies, quorum, majorities, and we identify the controlling shareholder across the chain up to the last point, and we assess the nationality. And based on that, we give a result. So here you have an example, which is in the guidance for restricted calls, which is a document that you can find online. I've also included the link in my presentation. So it's a document that I advise you to consult to see what you have to do to assess your ownership. So here it's something quite simple. And you see that at every step, we need to receive the documentation, because here you have a situation of non-EU control. We ask you as well to take into consideration a potential commercial link, financial link, or other links that could confer control. An example of that, for example, if you have only one client or only one supplier, they could have control over your entity because of commercial links. Similarly, if you have financial dependence, we need to receive this financial dependence, we need to receive this information to assess whether we would consider your entity as EU or non-EU controlled. In any case, we'll guide you through the process. So you do your declaration to the best of your abilities, and then we ask for the documentation. And obviously, if we think that something is missing, we will request it, and we will help you to reach the right conclusion. At the end of our assessment, we give a result. It's either EU or non-EU. There is no situation of no control. So it's EU or non-EU. We don't, based on your result, tell you if you can or cannot participate to the call. So this is the responsibility of the operating unit. Obviously, we help them if they have questions, but we just give an answer EU, non-EU, and if non-EU, we specify the countries that we considered in control during the ownership chain. The conditions for eligibility must be kept throughout the project. If you change ownership or governance, for example, you're being bought, you need to inform the operating service so that we can assess whether this event is going to impact your eligibility. Other than that, you're good for 36 months. So as I said at the beginning, it's not just for this call, it's for all the calls you could apply to that require an ownership and control assessment. But you have to consider that any change in the eligibility needs to be notified to us. And obviously, if you participate to several calls and for one of them you become non-eligible, we will redo the note and inform all the operating units of that change. And for some of the calls, it won't matter. In terms of documentation that you can read to see and to understand what you need to fill in for the ownership and control declaration. So you have our rules for legal validation, their appointment and financial capacity assessments, which my colleagues, I think, have mentioned in the morning. So it's available online, it's freely downloadable. And you have a small section that explains what is an OCA and how to prepare. Then you have, as I mentioned as well, the guidance on participation in DEP, Horizon Europe and EDF, restricted calls. It's basically a modus operandi of what we do, what we look for and how we work. So you read this and you won't have any surprise when we come to you with requests for documents if needed. And for your declaration of control, I advise you to do it because basically we should have the same reasoning. So if you reach a result, we should reach the same result as you. And so the last document is the first one I presented, so the declaration on ownership and control. And this you need to fill in. Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you.
Quite clear, I have to say. What is important to underline here is that this is a continuous process. It's not a process that is done only when they are doing the OCA the first time, but if during the life of the project someone, I don't say any country, buy one of the partners, this will change everything. And it may lead to cancel the project because the ownership will break the security stuff that is linked to the project itself. So this is something that it can happen. And this is something that, and you can also run into problems if you are not informing the European Commission of having changed part of the ownership of the participant. Okay, so if you do not have any question for this colleague, we thank you a lot for your presentation. And we move now to the last part of this info day, that is the one-to-one session. We have scheduled with some of you that have decided to have this exchange with my staff. For the others that I told, or the one that are here, are not running into this one-to-one session, I would like to thank all of you for being so attentive, for all the questions you made, for your interest in the Research Fund for Corner Steel. And I'm really looking forward to receive a lot of proposals for all the call, the annual, but also the dual use. And looking forward to have you in presence in the future for our info days, especially now that we have discovered that our canteen is offering better food than the sandwiches that we were offering in the past. So this is positive. Again, thank you very much, and all the best for all the success for your proposal. Thank you.